I look good. I mean, really good. Hey, everyone! Come and see how good I look! It's so damn hot. Milk was a bad choice.
Although I do wonder which would be a worse choice, milk on a hot day or Carson Soucy ever, guys. Welcome back, everybody, to Big Apple Hockey, Rangers Central, Statboy Steven, Ice Cold Takes. We have a mega show to talk about the New York Rangers season. And we also going to have Jonny Lazarus dropping in from Daily Face-Off. And let's just get right into it, guys, because we were just having a great conversation before we even went live. I'm here with my partner, John Fulkowski from Big Apple Hockey. Phil, how we doing? And what are your thoughts on this season that just passed?
I think shit show is the one term that I can come up with. Otherwise, I don't have a lot of good things to say. I feel like the team quit on not only themselves, the organization, but the fans and Sam Rosen. And that, I think the last part is the worst part of it. You quit on a guy that you knew was going to be in his final season, and you wanted to give him one more chance to call his last playoff game. And what did you do? You played like you didn't care. What? Because you were criticized and you were called out for the poor work that you've done? Just get rid of everybody on this fucking team.
And we're joined with Matt and Evan from Ranger Central. Guys, Matt, I'll start with you. What did this season do to your psyche?
I'm glad it's over. I'm glad it's over because let me tell you something. From about December, or probably even earlier, probably November, I was openly rooting against this team. I wanted them to lose as many games as possible. I did not want to see this team in the playoffs. I didn't even want to think about watching this team in the playoffs because from top to bottom, this was arguably, and for me, this is just my own because I've only started watching since 09, 010. This is arguably for me the worst season that I've ever seen. The players on this team are unlikable. I don't like any of them. The front office is dysfunctional. The ownership group, again, is dysfunctional. Chris Drury looks like he's going to stay. So pretty much the future, at least the short term, doesn't look any brighter than it has in the last couple weeks. And yeah, I'm just glad the playoffs are on right now because I actually get to watch some good hockey and some good competent structure. And then my favorite baseball team, the New York Mets, is one of the top teams in the MLB right now. So other than this shit show being over, I'm happy.
Well, going to the guy that does the Rangers wrap-up shows and does Mets shows as well. Evan, we actually saw video proof of what this season has done to you.
I don't know what we're talking about. It's just one season, guys. Just one season.
Just one game.
I wish we had the soundbite on deck with Phil saying it's been dog shit because this team nearly had me instituted. I mean, if you go to the December streams and see me with a paper bag over my head, I think that pretty much sums up the way that goes. That went all the thumbnails with the dog taking a shit. We had Drury with the clown face. Forgot what else. We had a couple of good thumbnails throughout the season. Yeah, the dumpster fire one. That's another good one. Yeah, this season was just a mess, and there's always next year, right? That's what they say. There's always next year.
Yeah, you think there's always a next year, Joe, from Ice Cold Takes?
Usually my answer to that would be yes, because I'm the optimist. I'm the optimistic guy. But this season was just a disaster in every sense of the word. I was a pretty big defender of Chris Drury heading into the season, but then as it played out and seeing how the Rangers performed and all the things that he did that ended up backfiring, not even like the Trouba thing in the offseason. I'm talking about like the internal memo, the trade memo, trading for Carson Soucy, maybe signing Shesterkin. I don't know. Like you guys could discuss that later, but how am I supposed to root for him now, knowing that he's probably staying and this team hasn't changed? He hasn't made any personnel changes in 4 years of being president and general manager. the team doesn't work. They clearly reached their ceiling last year when they won the President's Trophy and made it to Game 6 of the conference finals. And then just seeing how the players reacted on breakup day yesterday, all their quotes, it's just like sounds like excuse making, and basically it all comes down to they cracked under pressure. Like they could not handle it once were traded, and the fact that we're still talking about this 1 year later tells me all I need to know, that two guys that were not the best performers on the team are still stressed over in that locker room by the main leaders of the group. That tells me all I need to know. And I don't know what to think heading into next year. I don't know how to root for Drury, but I know that I have to because it's my favorite team. I don't know what they do to make things right for next year. I don't even think they can, to be honest.
Well, for this, you need a wealth of hockey knowledge and perspective. So we welcome in Statboy Steven.
Oh boy, season's over, and I couldn't be happier. You know that meme about how millennials have lived through yet another once-in-a-lifetime event? Like, this is what it feels like as a Ranger fan. Like, I have survived watching the 2024-25 New York Rangers. It was a shit show from start to finish. Chris Drury was both ruthless and undecisive, which is quite the accomplishment for a general manager. And it led to the whole locker room being discombobulated. It was a shit show. At least 8 players have openly criticized the team or organization this season, which I've never seen before from any NHL team. As Joey alluded to, no accountability during breakup day. It's all about how Zibanejad saying that the first couple of months of the season were the worst thing he's ever lived through as an NHL player, despite the fact that he had 5 concussions, which is a wild take to me. But overall, like, I gave up. No, I didn't give up on the team. I gave up on this team's playoff aspirations in December. And I'll quote my grandma, who always says, expect nothing and you won't be disappointed. I don't know what to think of this team. They are the most unlikable roster I've ever tried to root for with this team. And to drive it home, what Joey said about, or what Phil alluded to, that they haven't won anything. Jacob Trouba saying at the start of the season that this is their last dance. When like the vast majority on the team has never even been to a Stanley Cup final. You haven't even been to the dance. What are you talking about? You want to go out right into the sunset when you haven't won a goddamn thing? They are just like, their priorities are just not aligned. And I always say this team has way too many players that don't hate losing.
They don't hate to lose. If anyone watches Shoresy.
It's a mess. It's a mess. And Phil, I did this with you yesterday, right? Where rank the defensemen where you would see them on a Stanley Cup.
Yes, let's do that at some point. I don't know if do you want to do that now or do you want to do that a little later?
You know what? Let's do that now. Let's get this exercise done before we forget. All right. So what I want you guys to do, picture a Stanley Cup winning roster, right? And then you have 8 spots on defense. You can have multiple players in a similar spot. I want you to rank where you think the defensemen fall. 1 being the best defenseman on the team, 8 being your the second spare defenseman in the press box, right?
Oh God,
I know who's getting that last spot.
All right. So and like I said, you can have multiple players in 8. You can have multiple players in 6. It doesn't have to be a 1 through 8 thing. All right. So where would you rank, with the way he played this season, Adam Fox? Mark?
I would still put him. Like, my faith in him is still there. He was a little bit hampered. Maybe he's a 2, but I'd still go 1.
Okay,
he could be a 1 on a Stanley Cup team.
A 1 or a 2. Phil?
Well, you already know my answer. I put 1.
Yeah,
because I think that he put up 60 points in a down year, despite having partners that the eye test and the analytics show that don't belong anywhere near a top pair, whether it's Lindgren, whether it's Susie, whether Vakanainen, whoever the hell they play with him. No one on this team belongs playing with him, even Keandre Miller. So, one, all things considered.
A 1 for you. Matt?
I'll probably go 2. Listen, I still think Adam Fox can be an elite defenseman in the league. I just don't know. I mean, could he ever go back and reach the top levels of and go back into the bracket of like what Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar are? He could. I just think he has to improve on his skating. And that's something that, since he's won the Norris, he's never improved upon. So could he do it? Sure. But, that's down to him and whether he wants to improve on that or not.
This 110% right there.
All right, Evan.
1.5. Get healthy and learn how to skate.
All right. And Joey?
I'll put Fox at 1.
A 1. All right. Next up, Keandre Miller.
Mark?
Which Keandre Miller are we getting?
The Keandre Miller we saw this season. I'm talking about this season.
Even Steven, game to game, shift to shift, he's a different player. He's got more personalities than I was going to try to come up with somebody. All I came up with Two-Faced at the moment. But no, I mean, there's a different Keandre Miller on every single shift, and that's the reason why, unfortunately, at best, last year, I would have said Keandre Miller's a 3. 4 or 5.
A 4. All right, Phil?
So I think we have a new nickname for Keandre Miller. We can now call him Harvey Dent.
There you go.
But I said 4.
Right.
I think that at his best, he could be a 3, maybe a 2. But he is a 4. You don't want him being the guy that's anchoring your second pairing. You want a stable guy that can anchor that pair. And, he can come in and help that guy out. So I say 4.
Just to set, before we send this over to Matt, I just want to remind everybody of this because I've mentioned this several times. That play at the end of the Dallas game in January, where he looks over at Ryan Lindgren, says, "I got it," skates to the right wing boards, promptly turns the puck over, and it ends up in the Rangers' back of the net. If your guy is saying you got it, you better get it.
Yep.
The first Mark chirp of the day.
What about Jason Brodzinski?
Jason Brodzinski, that's another good one.
All right, Matt, Keandre Miller.
5. I think for me, he's too much of a head case for me to put him on a second pair on a quote unquote cup winning team. Listen, I think Keandre Miller, if he were to ever figure out his mental issues, I think he actually could be a really good defenseman because I like his skating ability. I like his offensive upside, but just he's so inconsistent. And that's always been his biggest problem throughout his short NHL career so far. It's like you don't know what you're getting from him from game to game. I mean, the amount of misblown coverages he's had in the D zone is terrible. The amount of times he just has these dumb turnovers again. And again, for a guy who's like has a really big stature and has a big body, he doesn't know how to use it. He gets knocked off the puck easily. He's just I don't know. I don't trust him at all. So I'm gonna go 5.
All right, Evan.
Someone pull up Nicole's comment from before because she said Keandre Miller physical attributes is a 2, mental side is a 7. That's the perfect way of putting it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say I'll be on the generous side and say 4 just because when I look at teams that I view as like the cup contenders this year, I think he lines up more with those than the 3s or even the 5s of the world. So I'll say a 4.
All right, Joey.
On this roster, I don't think the Rangers have a better complement to Adam Fox than Keandre Miller. But Matt talked about the inconsistencies, and I can't go higher than a 3 or a 4 for Miller.
Yeah,
I'll say second pair defenseman. I'll give him a 4.
Yeah. So just to be clear, it's not where they play now. It's where you would rank them on a Stanley Cup winning team, right? All right. Next up, Mark, Will Borgen.
I really like Will Borgen, but you're looking at maybe on a Stanley Cup winning team. he could be a 4, but I let's go with 5.
A 5. All right.
Yeah.
Silk?
6. I
6.
really I think that he gets propped up way too much by Ranger fans because he came in and helped out Keandre Miller, and they were a decent pairing, and they've been taking on, I guess, the tough assignments lately. But that is just not somebody that if I have him in my top 4, I'm not winning a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, and also a quick reminder that he was a third pair defenseman in Seattle behind Oleksiak and Montour, by the way.
Yeah, and well, Oleksiak is a better defenseman, and Montour is far superior to either of those two, so that's not surprising. But I don't want Borden anywhere near a top 4 if I have aspirations at a Stanley Cup.
All right, Matt.
I was gonna go 5, but I'm gonna move him down to 6.
All right.
Listen. When he first came in, I thought he looked really good, and I was actually one of the few people that were high on him when they traded for Will Borgen. And don't get me wrong, like I said, he started off very well. He actually played solid defense. He moved the puck well, but after he signed that extension, and again, there was no reason to sign him. There was no reason to sign him to that extension. That was just Chris Drury panicking, because people were freaking out over the Kakko trade and the fact that he was playing well. But like I said, ever since he signed that extension, his defense has fallen off the cliff. His passing has not been good either. And overall, I mean, as a skater, he's not great either. So yeah, for me, a 6.
All right, but before we go on, I'm going to start this question, and we're going to go back to this in a little bit when we're done with this because it's actually a really good question.
All right.
Okay.
All right, Evan. Will Borgen.
7. I really just cannot understand the love affair with this fan base with Will Borgen. The Buffalo Sabres, who are a terrible hockey team, if I need to remind you, did not want to protect this guy in the expansion draft because he is not good. And the only reason Ranger fans are propping him up is exactly what MJ said. It's because they're trying to make it look like the Kakko deal, they spared it and did something good. And that's the only reason he got extended to. This guy is never in the right position. This guy is consistently puck watching. I don't understand the love affair with him at all. 7.
And also remember the Colorado game.
Yeah.
The turnover, that was bad. I mean, listen, I think he's a little better positionally than you're giving credit for, Evan, but I also don't think he's anything more than a 6 defenseman. I really don't. Right. I don't think he's good enough. He definitely wasn't worth the extension they gave him for the 10 games. Like, how do you do that? Like, the only reason they handed out that deal was because, we don't want to look like idiots after trading Kakko away, so we're going to overpay a defenseman that really isn't worth anything.
It wasn't the only time they did that, by the way, this year.
To quickly touch on this before I go to Joey, Drury acquired 3 players this season that, according to the reports, the Rangers have been tracking for at least 2 years. Will Borgen, Juuso Parssinen, and Carson Soucy.
If they've been tracking those 3 players for 2 years, it tells you that there needs to be a complete overhaul of their pro scouting, their developmental, and their entire scouting in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Joey, Will Borgen, and then after this, we'll go through it a bit quicker to wrap it up. But Will Borgen.
Borgen is I'm gonna give him a 6. He's a bottom pair defenseman making top 4 money. That's a 6 for me.
All right. Schneider, Mark.
I think Schneider could still be a 3, but we're going to talk about that in a minute too.
No. What do you think that he's going to be on a cup
on a cup winning team?
I'm saying, all right. Let me go with where he is right now. Schneider's a 5.
All right, Philk.
I have him as a 5 as well. I another one that if he's playing top 4 minutes, you're screwed. Look at the other, like the exercise is really to kind of, bring light as to what we have as compared to what other teams have. And if you look at other defensive corps and their units that have won, a guy like Schneider isn't in anyone's top 4 over the last however many years.
No. All right, Matt.
7. Listen, could he have potential to be a little higher? Sure, but his skating is not great either. He puck watches a lot in the D zone. Same thing with Keandre Miller. A lot of terrible turnovers. Doesn't really have any high offensive upside. For me, I don't really like Schneider. So 7.
No. Evan.
I'm gonna say a 6 because I think that there are some attributes to his game that could be improved, but the thing that's just makes no sense to me still, which I'm sure we'll talk about more, is just how this team contradicts how they value Schneider, because 1 minute he's untouchable and then another minute they're getting guys ahead of him on the depth chart and extending him. So, like, do they believe in him or not? I think he's a 6, and they're right if they think that, but Will Borgen as your 4 then is just not the answer. So, but I'll say 6.
Yeah, Chris Drury is the general manager equivalent of one of those hoarders you see on National Geographic, right? With houses with boxes full of stuff that's meaningless. All right, Joey, Braden Schneider.
If we were just going off of last season, not this past season, I would have said that Schneider would be a okay 4. But I mean, based on this season, everyone took a step back, including him. I know he was injured with the.
I was going to say, yeah, we have to factor that in.
Yeah, that's hard. It's hard for me. So I would say 4, but I mean, he was bad this season. I'll say 5, like on a Stanley Cup team.
All right, Vakanainen, Mark.
Steven, I started smiling because I knew this one was coming. And there's 9 Finnish defensemen in the NHL. He wasn't going to make Team Finland until there was an injury. He's a 7.
Yeah.
You can use him for half the season. That's about it.
Yeah. All right, Philk.
That's what I said yesterday. I said 7. You cannot have this guy playing big minutes for you on a regular basis. And not only that, you shouldn't have given him $1.55 million. Like, what? Or how stupid do you have to be to go pay that for a 7th defenseman?
Yeah. All right, Matt.
7. He's a rotational defenseman at best. I mean, listen, could he come in for a couple games here and there and provide you with a solid game or two? Sure, but to put him in your lineup for a long-term season, 82-game season plus playoffs, you're not going to see anything from him. 7.
Yeah. All right, Evan.
I'll say 8. I've seen better depth defensemen.
All right, Joey.
I'm gonna say 7th. 7th defenseman.
7. All right. I'm not sure if I should include this guy because he's pretty much gone, but Zach Jones, Mark.
He's a 7 at best.
All right. Philk.
I'm pretty sure. I think I said 7 yesterday. A guy that could come in and give you the one thing that he's like good at. Like I said yesterday, was puck transportation. He has the ability to break the puck out of his own zone and move it through the neutral zone and make the first pass out. I think there's a place for it, but you can only put him in for a certain stretch of games or against certain opponents because he's too small. He's not good enough defensively. His positional and one-on-one games are lacking big time. And yeah, I'm gonna. Oh my God, yeah. I said that yesterday too. But yeah, you can't have him in as a regular. I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right, Matt.
6. I like Zach Jones's game, and I think if he was like ever given a full like run out over a long stretch, I think you would see him improve. Listen, I think for a cup team, I think he could be one of those like little reliable guys on your third pairing that's just a good overall puck mover and provides a solid game all around. So 6.
Yeah, my concern is that you have to accommodate a lot to put Zach Jones in your on your defensive core. But yeah, a 6 is probably not out of the realm of possibilities. Evan.
7. I've been accused of being a Zach Jones glazer, but I just believe that if he went to a smart team, he would be someone that would thrive there and potentially be a 6th defenseman. But if we're talking, teams like the Rangers and just even on a cup-winning team, more likely a 7 either way.
All right, and Joey, Zach Jones.
I've always been high on Jones, but I've never to the point where it's like, oh, this guy's going to be top pair or middle or second pair. I'll give him a 6 because he could break the puck out. He's got to work on his shot though.
All right, and then Carson Soucy, Mark.
9.
Okay, we'll expand the list to 9 for this one.
No, and an 8 thing in an 8-person slots, he's 9. No, Carson Soucy's a cone.
Yeah,
he's 8.
Philk.
I said 8 yesterday. This is nobody, and you know what the sad part is? years back, I was high on Soucy. I thought he was going to develop into like a decent 5. I would try to be optimistic about getting him. I knew the numbers and the analytics were not good and kind towards him the last couple of years or so. But I tried to hold out hope and say maybe he would improve with a change of scenery.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Right.
I'm not going to make that mistake again. Definitely an 8.
All right, Matt. Carson Soucy.
How low does this ranking go?
8.
You know what? The fucking center of the earth. That's where he can go. That's where he belongs. The guy is shit.
Look, listen. I know there's 26 letters in the alphabet, but you're going to get as low as an F in high school, right?
Oh no! If someone could get lower, it's Carson Soucy. No, the guy's just terrible. I mean, I didn't want him coming from Vancouver. I saw the warning signs. I saw everything that this decor lacked. The fact that they couldn't skate, the fact that they couldn't pass, and you get the guy in Carson Soucy who basically does all that. Can't skate, can't pass. He can't do anything. I mean, this guy is so bad that he makes Patrick Nemeth and Jared Tenorti look good. That's saying something.
All right, Evan and Joey, Carson Soucy.
Stop being so mean, guys. Stop. He's right here with me. Just don't be mean to him. I'm with Matt. As low as you could go to the Earth's core. Like Philk used to say about Nemeth, he needs to be fired into the sun by a cannon. He's terrible. Dog shit, wolf shit, whatever shit, elephant shit, whatever you want to use. That's what he is. I'm not giving a number. He's terrible.
Joey?
I don't think I could give a number on this. I would rather have Ben Harper. Quite literally, I would.
All right. So that basically wraps up. Yeah. So that basically wraps up the exercise, and this is the problem, right? To drive it home, what this exercise is about. Johnny Brodzinski playing center on your third line does not make him a third line center.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Looking at the defensive core right now, the players that are going to be here next year, so we're not looking at Trouba, Lindgren, or even Kelvin DeHaan because he'll be gone. Next season, including the RFAs, the Rangers have one top pair guy in Adam Fox, one second pair guy in Keandre Miller, and then they have a bunch of third pair defensemen. The problem the Rangers have is that they need to plug multiple holes on their blue line for this team to even be considered a contender. So, sorry, Sean. Sorry, Sean.
Should everybody? By the way, just to say this, everybody thinks that they were a coach away from a Stanley Cup.
No.
That's a good dose of cold water.
And to drive home to this exercise really drives home how far removed the Rangers are from the teams that are going up for a Stanley Cup this year. If you look at the Florida Panthers, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Vegas Golden Knights, even the Dallas Stars, do you think Will Borgen is a top 4 defenseman on those teams?
No, and even then, I was
Dallas.
saying this in a group chat that I don't know if they compete with some of these bottom level teams in the playoffs like Ottawa and New Jersey right now who look terrible.
Someone playing top 4D on your team does not make him a top 4 defenseman. That's the point.
And by the way, Evan, we have that answer because they played New Jersey 2 weeks ago. That same team that's getting run out of the building right now in Carolina. The Rangers.
Carolina would have swept them, and the Rangers would have never had a lead in that series.
And even Ottawa beat them a couple times.
Yeah.
So Chris Drury, to me, when it comes to the defense, Chris Drury is very hit or miss. He's good at identifying the players that need to go, right? Because he traded Lindgren at the deadline. He got rid of Jacob Trouba. But if you then replace those guys with Carson Soucy, Urho Vakanainen, and Will Borgen, you are just creating new problems. Like I did not want Ryan Lindgren on this team. Carson Soucy being worse than Ryan Lindgren does not mean Ryan Lindgren should have been signed to an extension.
Okay. All right. You know what? I would agree with you. Counterpoint, though. What was the solution or the player or players that would have been available to replace those guys? I don't know whose guess this Henny guy is, but this guy needs to go.
Oh, he's just saying,
well,
you're not going to the Cup.
And this is like Chris Drury could have given himself an entire offseason to address this. if he had been as cutthroat with Jacob Trouba as he was with Barclay Goodrow.
Mm-hmm.
But to commit, how much is Will Borgen getting?
$4.1
million
for 5 years, including a no move clause, right?
Terrible.
The Chris
first
Drury
year.
Yeah,
way.
because everybody deserves a no move clause.
The problem is that Chris Drury is not getting you the players that make you better. He's getting the players that he wants.
But you know what? In the middle of this season, it would have been tough to do it. Who really would have been available that would have been able to get this team to where they needed to go?
The only guy was like Jake Wallman.
Jake Wallman, Ivan Provorov. I mean,
Carlo, but he went for an absurd amount.
I mean, it's not anything that he could have. And listen, I'm not defending Drury, but I mean, I think that's an unfair. I think it's completely unfair to say that, you know, and hey, he should have been able to do this, because I pointed this out when he made the JT Miller trade. This was going to be a first in a long line of big changes that were going to try to change the culture of this team. And it wasn't going to be something that was going to happen overnight. It may not even everything may not even be done this offseason. Like, we may have to go into next season and the season after to really get everything going. So it's going to take a little bit. So maybe Drury is not as much on the hot seat as some of us think.
He's not.
He's not.
He's definitely not on the hot seat, but the blue line that we have now, because we always talk about how in previous years this was still Gorton's team and not Drury's team.
Yeah. I think
it's slowly becoming
too many elements of Gorton's team there.
I know, but it's slowly becoming Drury's team, Phil.
There's two
both
Gordon
on
contracts on the
offense,
books.
both on offense and defense.
Yeah.
And Mika Zibanejad is also a Drury guy, because Drury is the one who gave him the extension.
Yeah,
At
there's
that
two
point,
contracts that are
Yeah, yes and no. Yes and no. Because Gorton brought him in, and then Drury gave him the contract. Drury could have moved on from him, yes, but he was too busy prospect hoarding because he didn't want to give up Hedl first, Kravtsov and Lundqvist for Jack Eichel.
Yeah, that's actually looking much worse now.
And also, like, not wanting to give up Othman or Perreault for Jay Gensel when you have literally your best regular season in franchise history. Like, with everything that was going for them last season, that should have been the move, instead of getting just a couple of depth guys that completely didn't fill any holes. But I don't want to get into this too much. The exercise was more to show us Ranger fans where the team currently is compared to where they need to be.
Well, I'll also just say this. This is also what happens with the players you get when you're dealing from behind the 8 ball. I mean, basically, you're getting anything for Trouba. We thought he was just going to get waived. That was a triumph. And then
Mark, signing Vakanainen to a $1.5 million extension, signing Will Borgen to a $4.1 million extension,
ridiculous.
When both of them are not more than a third pair defenseman on a Stanley Cup winning team, there's a bit of a disconnect. But anyway, we'll move on.
Bluegrass asked this one earlier. Phil brought this one up. Evan, let's start with you on this and then go around the top. Would you say that the 2024 Rangers are worse than the 2017-18 Senators in terms of dysfunction? That's the only one he could think about with the parallels. I'll start with you on that and then go to Joey in the round.
It's hard to say just because there's like some recency bias now of Ottawa starting to turn a corner. But, you know, I've always said it, and we were talking about it before the stream. It's not by accident when you win one cup in the past 84 years. Like, that doesn't happen by accident at all. I've stood my ground that as long as Drury's here, I don't see things getting better. Dolan as an owner is just as much of an issue. I have my thoughts of what they should do next season, which I'm sure we'll, address that sort of stuff later. It's probably not going to happen, and that's the problem. Like, I don't sense the direction at all from Drury. Like this is my biggest problem, and I brought this up when Laviolette got fired. My biggest pet peeve in sports is when you don't see the blueprint of what they're trying to do as an organization, because they give so many mixed signs, this team, of, well, we're going to retool. Well, we might keep the core around. We're going to keep the core around, but, just revamp a little things around it again, or, signs of maybe tearing some of it down. I don't know what the blueprint is, and that's the biggest problem for me, which is why right now, I mean, yeah, you could say that it looks more dysfunctional, because at least with Ottawa, they were clearly headed at one point towards, we are rebuilding and this is what it is. The Rangers right now, what is the direction?
Yeah, it's tough. This is tough one. Depends on how you view that. Like, if we're heading towards a rebuild, is that a good thing? Because we saw how it worked, and it didn't work when we sent out the letter. I mean,
well, because it was a lie.
Because it was a lie. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
that's it. Like, we were talking about it before. When has the Rangers ever prioritized playing younger players over experienced veterans? And I could say in this rebuild era, it lasted one game. And I don't know if you guys remember it. It was in 2019, 2020. The Rangers played the Lightning, and Zibanejad was out with an injury. They called up Hedl, they called up Lindgren. And Fox had his first goal in that game. I think Kakko had a power play goal. Hedl had a point or something like that. But then at the end of the game, David Quinn rolled out Fox and Lindgren, right? Prioritizing the younger guys over the experienced guys. They healthy scratched Mark Stahl in that game. So I don't know where the Rangers are going based on, like, if they're going to hang on to Othmann and Perreault, or they're going to keep them on are they going to make the roster out of at a training camp? It depends on how that goes. I don't know. 17, 18 Senators are just like a different kind of dysfunction, because that was like between the players, I would say, right?
Yeah.
More so. And this is the play between the players and like Chris Drury and ownership or management.
Was that also the year that they had the Hoffman Carlson?
Yeah,
yes, that's what I'm saying.
That was the Hoffman Carlson drama that really caused a lot of that. This right here is like a WWE triple threat match between the players, the coaching staff, and the management, and that's why it's two completely different definitions of dysfunction, two different types, I should say. But this is not ideal at all. In a way, I think that this might be worse because there's less of a path, or a more diluted path, if you will, to, getting around this and moving on, as opposed to that where it was just Hoffman had to go because Hoffman and his wife were completely toxic. Ottawa hasn't really recovered since until now, but like they're well beyond Carlson and Hoffman. Like, they're years and years beyond that. I don't know how long it's going to take for this team to get back to like where they were last year.
Yeah. Also, I know at the time it wasn't really mentioned as a dysfunctional issue, but looking back at that roster, 2017-18, was also Alex Formenton was on that roster, who that season at the World Juniors, of course, had the incident that he's now on trial for. So in hindsight, that's another angle that I don't know how much that affected the situation at the time, because no one knew about it. But yeah, the Rangers this season are just a whole different tier of shitstorm.
I mean, again, they're always going to talk shit about your coaches. But Matt, what are your thoughts on the level of dysfunction right now in this franchise?
I mean, probably, comparing it to the 2017-18 Senators, I'd say it's probably worse. I mean, just because, like what Phil mentioned, that, it's a triple threat match because you have the whole dysfunction between the players, the coaching staff, and the front office. And that's like, and at least, that's so much worse than it just being between the players, because at least between the players, like, you can eventually get through it. And I mean, and I agree with Evan's point. And, we've talked about this before, but until Chris Drury goes, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. And let me tell you, for for that Ottawa team, because obviously, you take a look back and the previous year in 2016-17, they obviously got within a game of going to the Stanley Cup final. They obviously lose in double overtime to Pittsburgh in that playoff run, but it took them 8 years to get back to making the playoffs in general. And I'm telling you right now, like, maybe fans don't want to hear it, but you can probably expect something similar with the Rangers. Like, it's going to get worse before this gets better. And at least the thing with Ottawa, at least they went out and they could, draft and develop young players. I mean, look at their current core right now. Brady Tkachuk, drafted and developed. Tim Stützle, drafted and developed. Drake Batherson, drafted and developed. Shane Pinto, Jake Sanderson, Thomas Chabot. Do you think really that the Rangers could do that? Develop that many young players? Absolutely not. So
wait a minute, you mean to tell me? Sorry, wait. You mean to tell me that you don't draft a guy third overall and put him on the third line and relegate him to 5-on-5 play his entire career?
You have to teach. You have to teach him how to play hockey, Mark. You have to teach him how to play hockey the right way.
Yes,
Mark. Let me tell you, it sounds like a crazy concept that you shouldn't do that, but it actually works. It's crazy. I know.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference between the Senators that season and the Rangers this season is that the players don't have issues with each other, right? The players don't have an issue with the head coach that you could easily replace. The players have an issue with the general manager / president. That is an issue so much bigger than whatever Ottawa was dealing with. Yeah, the Hoffman-Karlsson incident was bad, but other than that, like, did the group of players in the locker room in Ottawa collectively dislike the general manager? Who was it at the time? Pierre Dorion?
Pierre Dorion.
Yeah, Pierre Dorion.
Yeah. The fact that we have to ask that question answers everything we need to know.
Yeah. If the players have an issue with the general manager, that goes so much further.
Not highlight that comment.
That goes so much further than what we usually see.
But
it's ridiculous.
Going into, like, further from this, with Mika Zibanejad talking yesterday how he couldn't get over the Barclay Goodrow trade that happened, or incident that happened way before the season started. And then there were problems with Jacob Trouba. They couldn't get over that either. This team is softer than cooked marshmallows. Like, are you kidding me? You couldn't figure it out? How about remember that you're a professional athlete? Be a professional. Go to work. Do your job. I mean, the first commitment should have been everyone in that room. You should be committed to everyone else in that room. And I don't give a flying F what the GM does or says. That's a joke. And then you worry about the coach because you talk to the coach all the time. How often do you talk to the general manager? The only that was a line in Moneyball where Brad Pitt saying, "I don't want to get to know the players. I have to trade these guys if I have to." So, and then on top of it all, you get rid of the captain, and the same day you hand out an $11 million 8-year extension to a goaltender. Players, they must have broke their neck snapping it that hard going from one side to the other.
And can I jump in and say, because this is something that we didn't even talk about with Drury, how in his exit interview or whatever interview it was, like when Laviolette got fired or whatever, he's just basically going up there and being like, yeah, this is on me. This starts with me. Then why do you keep firing so many people if this is on you? Obviously, you're not going to fire yourself, but if this is really on you, why is everyone going and being in the line of fire, and then you just get to sit back, relax, and continue to run the ship here? It just makes no sense. And then I commented in the chat before because Gabe was saying that he blames the players more than Drury. Drury is definitely part of this. I mean, the Kravtsov situation, like I said, is proof of this. When he was the assistant GM, he went in that Hartford locker room and embarrassed Kravtsov right in front of his teammates. If you can't tell me that Drury is not at the very least part of this, and at the end of the day, he controls the roster and controls the collection of guys in the room. It's like what David Stern says, and I know people don't want to hear baseball connections, but he talks about all the time how you need to have the right mesh of guys. Like, chemistry is something that develops naturally. And if you clearly see there's an issue in there, then you got to cut it out. That's why they got rid of Jorge Lopez when he threw his glove into the crowd, because they saw an issue there and there was division in the locker room, and he helped fix it.
MJ, he basically told Kravtsov in front of the entire Hartford Wolfpack locker room that he quit on them for exercising a clause in his contract to go back to Russia if he didn't make the NHL roster. And
Phil, I'll actually expand on that a little bit because
Steven actually might have a little more on this than I will.
Yeah, so back in 2019, Vitaly Kravtsov, 1 year after he was drafted, was given an entry-level contract, and a lot of players that sign coming over from Europe, where they already play professionally, usually negotiate what's called a European assignment clause, which states that if you don't make the NHL roster, you have the option to be loaned out to your European team. Tarmo Reunanen, who was a 4th-round pick in 2016, I think, signed an ELC the same summer as Kravtsov with the same clause, activated it, went back to Finland, not a word. Kravtsov does it, and Chris Drury, who was the general manager of the Wolfpack, came down from his office, stopped practice to scold Kravtsov and call him a quitter for giving up on his teammates. A year and a half later, he is on the team, right? And he's wearing a Wolfpack t-shirt in the locker room, and Chris Drury tells him to take off the Wolfpack t-shirt because he didn't want him wearing a Wolfpack t-shirt.
I didn't even know that part.
Yeah, the Drury stuff goes much further than that too. There's the Elias Anderson situation, who was rehabbing from a broken foot. He requested if he could rehab either in Sweden or in New York because he knew people there, and Drury said no. And then he was lonely in Hartford, felt himself slipping into a depression, and he went to Sweden anyway, and then they suspended him without pay. There's another player whose name I won't mention who asked if he could start training camp a week later because his a family member had just had bypass surgery, and he wanted to stick with the family member for a couple of days as they recovered from surgery. Player was denied, and he was suspended without pay. Sean Day terminated his entry-level contract. Have you ever heard of a player terminating an entry-level contract?
I remember that. I remember hearing.
Phil, have you ever heard of a player terminating an entry-level contract?
No, I've seen the Blake Wheeler thing. I've seen Eric Lindros. I have never seen a player terminate their own entry-level deal like that.
To get out of an organization. How bad were things under Chris Drury?
And could someone pull up Iceman's comment from before? Because this is part of the problem, is that the organization feels this way and the fans feel this way. They're like, oh, it does not matter because it's a depth player or a prospect that didn't work out. That's not the point. Whether we think these players suck or not, it does not matter.
Daniel Walcott. What a name drop there, Brian. Holy shit.
You don't treat your players like shit.
Evan.
That's the main point of this, and it continued throughout the season with every scratch having an issue. You didn't hear a word. The Islanders were the comparable. Let me just finish my point here. Right. The Islanders are the comparable, and I think Anthony brought this up. Matt Martin's closing in on 1,000 games, and he got scratched multiple times, never said a word. Why is it that the Rangers have this issue, but no other team that has scratches have this problem?
Because there's communication and respect between the players and the management.
Yeah, wow. And you know, it is
the Islanders fired Lou Lamoriello.
Yeah, look.
Is that really? Is that real?
It doesn't matter, Dave. It doesn't matter. You don't. If this happens in real life at your job, do you know that there's going to be a massive shitstorm? And Dave, you're an NTA bus driver. Your union's getting involved in that. There is a massive shitstorm. Anybody that works for a big corporation, this is going to HR. HR is mediating it. You don't embarrass your employees like that. You don't do that.
It does not matter if you're a star player or a depth player or a blue chip prospect or a long shot prospect. You treat your players with respect. This was not, Chris Drury didn't yell at Kravtsov because he did anything wrong. You know what he did? He exercised a contractual right. He exercised a clause that was given to him. He didn't do anything that you can suspend him for. Chris Drury treating Kravtsov that way is bad, regardless of how good Kravtsov is as a player. Because if you only care how you treat your star players...
Stephen, hold on. We now have our guest here with us. Joining us, you know what, I'm going to give him a minute. Yeah, I'm going to give him a minute,
All
but we're going to bring him in a second.
All right.
But so just finish up that point real quick.
Yeah, to quickly drive home my point. If you think in a way that it doesn't matter how you treated Kravtsov because he's not one of your star players, you're kind of part of the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. But on to a little more brighter side of things, we're going to bring our guest here, Mr. Jonny Lazarus from the Daily Face-Off Morning Cup of Hockey. How you doing, Johnny?
I didn't know I was coming onto a panel. So I got to go horizontal here.
Perfect. I'll just start with this.
Yeah.
Out of everything that has come out with these exit interviews, what are your biggest takeaways?
There's a lot. I don't know if you guys saw, I tweeted probably like 30, 40 minutes ago.
I think I like that, yeah.
Yeah, I went back and listened because I was trying to like remember what they said the day Trouba was traded, and then like, you know, how that whole situation and day spiraled into the rest of the season. And I don't have the quote in front of me, but it was something along the lines of any of us could be next. Any one of us could be next. And I don't know if I'm sure you guys have been talking about it, but like, you know, I see and hear everyone talking about, well, if the players were that upset about Barclay Goodrow and Jacob Trouba, they need to grow up, you know, like all those takes. And listen, while I agree with that sentiment, I don't know if this whole thing, the whole narrative was actually about Trouba and Goodrow themselves, or more so about that any of them could get the same treatment that those two got any day of the year. And when that is in the back of your mind as a player, you know, it could be very hard to go out there and perform. And listen, I'm not saying that's the reason or that's the cause, because, you know, a lot of this was also effort. Like they could have at least gone out there and showed that they cared, right? At least showed a little bit more heart. But, you know, any human being, when you feel threatened of some sort, it's only human nature to not, you know, feel your most confident or feel the best about your game. And this team that we watched this year was not a confident group. The team we watched last year was a very confident team. They were making plays. Artemi Panarin and Alexis Lafreniere were making backhanded cross-slot passes that I never have seen the Rangers make before. You know, like, and that's a confidence thing. This year, I think, you know, their confidence was almost ripped out of them just with how everything went down. And I don't know if it's actually about the individual people, more so about the message that was sent. And I think that's, you know, just like thinking more into it, you know, maybe where everything spiraled is that like, oh, well, if I have a bad 5 games here, they might ship me out too, you know, stuff like that. So I have a lot of thoughts about it. And, you know, I know Mika's quote's the one that stands out, right? About like accountability and where it comes from management and coaches and players, you know, everyone has to be aligned. And I think that's true. But also at the end of the day, like what we watched on the ice, like that's where the story is told, right? Like that's what needs to be convincing. That's what needs to be inspiring. And nothing that I saw on the ice this year convinced me that like there should be more connection, if that makes sense, right? Like if you play well on the ice, I'm sure management will be happier, and then the coaching staff will reward you. I have a lot of thoughts, obviously, clearly, but I'll spare you guys me rambling.
No, please. And I have one more question, and I'll turn it over to someone else after that. But breaking news, I think you just retweeted it before.
I just saw, yeah.
Yeah, Lou Lamoriello as not being renewed by the New York Islanders. Do you get, and I don't think he's going anywhere as of right now, but do you get any type of sense that Chris Drury could possibly be on a hot seat? Just your opinion, nothing from sources or anything like that, but just your feeling.
Yeah, I mean, listen, everything points in the direction that he probably should be, right? But I personally don't think he is, just because of relationships and all that. Like, I think he'll have one more crack at it, and then maybe it'd be more. But listen, I could be wrong. You know, I just think going off the knowledge that I have, I don't think he's in the hot seat. But you know, maybe a year from now, it's a different story.
Mark.
Johnny, one of the most frustrating players to watch this year was Alexis Lafreniere, and who looked like he was going to take another step and really go towards fulfilling that potential. Then he signed the extension, and then everything just disappeared. What are the Rangers going to do next year to get him, A, back to where he was last year, and B, to potentially get him to be the number 1 overall draft pick that they drafted?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if I had the answers, I'd probably be the head coach, right? I can't make sense of where the downfall was in his year, because it's not like he didn't get the same amount of ice time, the same amount of opportunity, play with the same line mates. Like everything was essentially the same for the most part. He got the first power play time look that we all were waiting for. And for whatever reason,
we lost connection.
We lost Johnny for a second.
Yeah,
so
we
we'll
lost
get him
Johnny
right
for a
back.
second. Yeah, so we'll kind of just go around and, after
Got him back.
now he's back. Okay, yeah, let's add him back in. Okay.
sorry about
No,
that.
okay.
Do you hear me okay?
Yep.
I was on Twitter and I accidentally hit the open button for the StreamYard app, so now I'm on the app.
Good.
So with Lafreniere, listen, I you guys obviously know I thought the world of Lafreniere 2 seasons ago. So I can't really make sense of it, but the collective group had a down year. So like I'm not gonna look at one player and be like, he sucked because he was just a bad player. It's like Trocheck had a down year. Also let's call it what it was too. We said all these players regressed from last year, but last year was an exceptional season for most of them, right? Like Vinny Trocheck, I think last year, what do you have? Like 77 points last year?
Almost 84.
Like I don't think he's ever put up those numbers really in his career prior. Like that's not who he really is. That was just an unbelievable season. Like this year, he actually had more goals than he did last year, which is nuts to think about, right? Because like everyone's like, oh, Trocheck was terrible this year. He wasn't terrible. Last year was just more of a career high season than this year was. You know what I mean? So it's so weird, and I'm sure everyone has their own opinions about this. This is just my opinion. I don't know like right or wrong, but like this year, I just kind of want to burn it and forget about it. Honestly, like I'm not gonna judge. Like I know a lot of fans are like, I can never look at them the same. They're dead to me. Ship them all out of town. Like teams have bad years, and I'm not saying that they're gonna go out and win the cup next year. Like I still think a lot of changes need to be made, but I don't know, man. Like the Lafreniere thing to me, I can't seem to put my finger on it or figure it out because to me, it just makes no sense.
Deb.
Go ahead.
I didn't have anything that I was going to say.
You got nothing?
Question, guys?
I had a question. I know Steven that wanted to ask first, because I know he had to get going. Did you want to?
Yeah, I need to drop in 15 minutes, so I'll ask my question. Hey, Johnny.
What's up, guys?
So
What's up, team?
Brennan Othman played a little over 20 games this season. Perreault signed late, of course. Burned a year of his ELC. Played a handful of games. How did the team respond to those guys like playing on the team late in the season?
From what I've gathered, and I had a really good conversation with Othman actually in Anaheim. I had caught him after morning skate. It was just him and I, and then I actually talked to Jonathan Quick about him too. There's one common theme with all the young guys that came in, and that common theme, and I know he gets a lot of hate too, which I think he does not deserve by any means. Johnny Brodzinski, that guy is a hell of a guy, a hell of a teammate, and I know fans don't necessarily always agree where he is in the lineup, but for what he's made of himself, at 31 years old, who never really got a true shot of the NHL and has come in and has been like just a steady bottom 6 player. I think Johnny has like, he might be the most underrated popular guy in the team. Like he shows all the young guys like everything there is to take under someone's wing. I think often felt comfortable. Obviously it's tough, right? Like I'll speak on my own experience. Like when you go to a new team or, this is obviously not the NHL or pro level, but like, and you don't score that goal, it's almost like I'll compare it to like making a first sale at a new job, right? Like you don't feel like you're necessarily in it or like you're contributing to it until you get that one thing. Then all of a sudden you're more comfortable. Your personality shines a little bit more, once you feel like you've actually contributed. I'm not saying Othman didn't contribute, but I think he hasn't found his comfort level yet just because he hasn't scored that goal yet. I think once he scores that goal, there's going to be a little bit more comfortability, a little bit like weight off of his shoulders, and he'll fully like enthrust himself into the group. But I gotta say, Jonathan Quick sounds like he made all those guys feel comfortable. One thing Othman told me specifically was that in LA, Jonathan Quick set up like a Nobu Malibu dinner for all them. And it was Othman's
I heard about that.
Yeah, it was Othman's like first time like eating sushi or eating seafood, and I was like, well, that's a hell of a first place to try seafood. So
don't ever eat seafood again. It doesn't get.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said to him.
Right?
That's exactly what I said to him. I was like, don't go to Kotobuki in New York City now because it's not going to taste the same.
With Perreault late in the season, he played for only 5 games, but looked relatively comfortable. Do you think he has a chance to make the team out of camp, or do you think he's definitely gonna spend some time in the AHL?
It's funny because this question got asked in the chat too by Dave, so actually answering
Johnny, just to address this, I accidentally said Gabriel Perreault once. That's where the joke is.
You never slip up though, I feel like.
Never.
That's funny. That's good stuff. I think if Gabe Perreault makes the team out of camp, he's playing top 6 minutes, and if he isn't going to crack the top 6, he'll play in the AHL. I don't think whoever this next head coach is going to be will get away with, bearing a young top 6 skilled sort of player on the 3rd or 4th line. I think it does them no good. I think everyone now knows that seems to be the trend around here. And it's been proven that, like, what did Gabe gain from these few games? What did Othman gain from playing those minutes in these few games? Not much, right? Like, sure, it's good experience, but like, we didn't see them necessarily thrive in it, but a guy like Will Cuylle, and I know fans probably want Will Cuylle in the top 6. I'm not saying he definitely can play up there and certainly belongs up there, but that guy can play anywhere in the lineup and be effective. So like, for me, having Will Cuylle as a steady 3rd liner and having Gabe Perreault play in a spot where he can actually play, because he's not going to dump the puck in and go hit a guy and get the puck back. That's not his game. It's not.
Yeah.
So
and there was one quote of Kako when they did breakup day in Seattle where he said that he feels more comfortable now because he feels like it's okay to make a mistake.
Yeah.
And that drives home so much about how young players in New York are, struggling because it just feels like they always walk on eggshells.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I certainly have something to say about that too. Also, like, Kako goes to a team that isn't making the playoffs, like doesn't really have a Stanley Cup aspiration.
Neither did we though.
Well, the last 3 years, it was really it was make the playoffs, like try to win the last 3 years for Kako, it was hard because his role was not solidified, right? Like, and listen, I think the way he was treated when he first got here, certainly I'd agree. He was treated, not the way a 2nd overall pick should be treated. But the last 3 years, like even he said it himself, like he said, I can't say I didn't get the chance, and this year was actually, which is the craziest part about it. It was the first year he actually kind of came into training camp with a role of being a 3rd line guy. Like the last 4 years of training camp, it was like, can he finally crack the top 6? Like it was all the pressure, but this year there was no pressure on him to do that. And I think he was almost playing better because of that, because he knew where he fit. But again, like, I'm happy for him. I think it's a better, it is clearly a better opportunity for him. But that's the hardest thing about being a hockey player too. It's like when you have these new coaches and new cycles too, that's his 3rd head coach, right? Like it's you never necessarily know where you stand, and it's hard to play your game when you don't know where you stand. And sometimes on the flip side, if you know how a coach views you, but it's not how you view yourself, it's even harder to play your game when you're doing something that you're not used to doing.
Yeah.
Right. Like if Kako's a top 6 player his whole life, and all of a sudden he's now been, labeled as a 3rd line guy by a head coach, and he has to play that 3rd line style. Yeah. There's a lot of pressure on that to like do that to your best ability when it's not something you've ever really done before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wasn't able to do it.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say about that, and then I'll sign off because I have some other things to do. But That's kind of how I feel about Othman this season, even though it's a much smaller sample size, right?
Yeah.
It's like 22, 23 games, but he basically bounced around between a fourth line with Brodzinski and Rempe, a top six.
And they were
line
great, by the way. They were
yeah,
phenomenal.
they were.
That was very
They
good.
were. And I almost feel like he's a victim of his own success with how good that fourth line was in certain games. But he bounced around between that fourth line, then the top line with Panarin and Trocheck, and then being a healthy scratch. I know it's a much smaller sample size and probably won't affect him as much as it did Kako, but you as a young player, you need a little bit more consistency to actually build on certain things.
Oh yeah, 1,000%.
Yep.
1,000%.
All right.
What else do you got to do?
I have to record my own podcast, John.
I was gonna say you're gonna pull up some random stats that I'll see in 35 minutes on Twitter.
Yeah, it's not like there's a major New York hockey news breaking right now. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good talk to you, Steven.
Bye, Steven.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, Steven.
Hey, Johnny, I got a question for you. I know your Habs in 4 pick they took a big blow last night thanks to Ovechkin. But one thing that was bothering me from what we heard about in breakup day was like all the injuries that happened. Now I feel like with all this stuff coming out, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone because yeah, I understand like Kreider had the vertigo thing and his back issue and then his hand after 4 Nations. And then Schneider, which was ridiculous, is crazy. The torn labrum issue that he dealt with this year, and it's been going on for like 2 seasons now. I understand that like these players want to stay in the lineup and say they're good to go and stuff, but how does no one in that room, like on that training staff or coaching staff, say like, all right, this guy is obviously not 100%. Let's put someone else that is 100%, especially this year when you have Brett Berard, Brendan Othman, you have Gabe Perreault coming up at the very end. How does no one step in and say something like that, like, and make that decision? Kreider, we're scratching you because we think you're hurt or whatever.
I mean, I'm not on the. I don't really have. I don't know what those conversations are like, to be honest. I'd have to side with you and say, like, if a guy's at 50%, what's the point of putting him in there, especially like this late in the season when we're not really even in the playoff picture anymore? Like, why was he even playing the last few games, like when they were eliminated? I don't know.
Like, not even that too. Like, Kreider was obviously dealing with something and it affected his play earlier in the season. Yeah. How is there a reluctance to put him on IR or LTIR or whatever? I know you don't.
Your questions are as good as mine. You
know,
like that's kind of that's the questions I'm left asking now, right? Like who is making these decisions and why are they making them? You telling me Brendan Othman at 100% can't be as effective as Chris Kreider at 40, at 30? I don't know, man. It's frustrating, and that's what's annoying, and that's what's I was asked this question before, like, I have so much respect for these guys that are willing to put their bodies on the line night in, night out for 82 games. But at what point, are you looking in the mirror and saying, is my 30% going to help this team? Like that's the question that I think is tough. And listen, nobody wants to sit in the press box and watch, right? Like that's the worst thing in the world. So, I get why Kreider would want to be out there. And I'd have to imagine if things were going better, maybe there's a better chance he does sit out. But because I'm sure internally he felt like he could help the team, he's not going to take himself out, right? Like, had the Rangers been in first in the division and the playoff picture was looking safe, he'd probably come out so he can rest up and get healthy for a playoff run. But because they're not in it, it's just, that's the only thing I can think of. I haven't talked to him about it directly. I haven't heard anything about it directly, so it's hard for me to sit here and like say what those conversations were, but that's the only thing I can come up with.
Yeah, like it probably would have been a better question to ask Peter Laviolette, but I mean, he's no longer there anymore. Yeah. So that's like when we found out about it after he was let go. So, I mean, that's just, like you said, it's just the thing that bothers me the most is that we probably won't ever get that answer to the question. And like a guy like Edstrom gets hurt and he comes out right away. And I mean, he gets the surgery to fix the problem. I mean, that's his decision and stuff. But I'm just like, it bothers me that like Kreider gets to stay in the lineup. I respect him a lot for playing through that, whatever issues he was dealing with. It's just frustrating, like you said.
Yeah, it's just frustrating for me too. I don't know.
Maddie, yeah.
Matt, did you have a question? It looked like you had a question for a second.
Yeah, I did. Hi, Johnny. So basically, a couple days ago, we find out the news that Peter Laviolette has been fired, and towards the end of the season, because obviously you guys are in there after games, and you guys talk to him during the press conferences, and he basically came out with one of the quotes saying that basically after a win or loss, he doesn't go into the locker room. He really doesn't have a message for the team, because I get it, like the changes from last year to this year in terms of tone and just atmosphere and team chemistry. Obviously we heard the things, about like the players pretty much quitting and stuff. Did you ever get a sense, and if they did, when did you ever get a sense during like the press conferences? Could you tell from Peter Laviolette that it felt like he was starting to become checked out during the season? Because I mean, also the same thing we saw during the practices and stuff. And I mean, obviously, like I think you're there also, and you do watch the practices, and we saw the thing, when Peter Laviolette was trying to talk to Chris Kreider about something, and he basically just brushed him off and skated away. So basically, yeah, like when or if did you kind of notice that Peter Laviolette started to kind of get checked out?
Listen, I think the locker room thing, that quote was misconceived a little bit. Like, he didn't say he doesn't go in there after wins. He just said, I don't go in the room. Like, I don't have a message. I think he just, after wins, I've seen him in there. Like there is video of him going to locker rooms after wins. After losses, from what I've heard, it's kind of common around the NHL for coaches not to go in rooms after losses. Not every coach does it, but some coaches do that. So that's not something I'm looking at and being like, oh, this guy's checked out. Like, I think that quote was kind of taken and spun into its own narrative. I know Ryan Warsofsky's the same way in San Jose. He doesn't go into rooms after losses. Like, it's something that coaches do. I actually had sometimes in college, my coach would not come in either. It's just, after you lose, there's not a message that really needs to get across. Everyone in the room kind of knows what went wrong. But Laviolette as a whole, and full transparency, like I wasn't able to make it to as many practices this year just because it's tough to get there when they practice at 9:30, 10 o'clock, 11 a.m. and my show doesn't end until 10:15, and I get to Tarrytown by like 11:45 and I missed the whole practice. So I wasn't able to go a lot this year. But from everything I've gathered, like I don't think he was checked out, but it sounds like he definitely didn't look into analytics so much. And that's conversations I've had with a couple people that like look into numbers and do all the numbers. And, I brought it to his attention about Keandre and Fox, and he only put them together really in the third period when the team was down a goal because he thought they could provide offense. And I asked him the question of like, this is probably like 6 weeks ago or 7 weeks ago, why do you feel so confident putting them together in that situation, but not to start a game? And he always just gave the answer of like, we make certain decisions based on certain situations. He never really got into detail about the decisions he made. And listen, fans get frustrated with me about the questions we ask, but like sometimes there are coaches that just don't give you answers, and sometimes there are coaches that do. Like I've asked Spencer Carberry a shitty question, but he runs with it for 3 minutes and turns it into a great question because he gives a great answer. Like I think every coach and every player is different in the way that they respond to things. And with Laviolette, I can't sit here and say that he was checked out, but I also feel like he was almost out of control a little bit just because of all the turnover that happened this year. You look at all the roster changes and the way situations were handled from up top, and it's like this guy's coaching a team that he has no idea who's going to be in and out of the lineup on any given night just because people are getting traded and they all this talk. And, there's so much shit that happened this year. Like last year, would anyone have said Peter Laviolette wasn't dialed in? Like, no, because the team's having success. But when the team loses, we all look and try to find some sort of answer as to why this, failure is kind of happening. Right. So, listen, I think when the losing stretch initially happened, I think most Ranger fans were in agreement that this wasn't a coaching issue. It was the players looking like they don't give a shit. But at some point, that turns into a coaching issue because you need to find a way to make the players give a shit. So I don't know. The whole year is just so bizarre to me. And I don't think there's really one thing that went wrong. It was just a spiral of things that went wrong. And, I've heard John talk about it too, I feel like. And listen, this team over the past 3 years, like, essentially was the same team, but the power play started to suck this year, and the goalies weren't making the saves that they normally made. Last year when the Rangers were winning the President's Trophy, the questions were like, why is this team so good? Their 5-on-5 numbers are horseshit. Like, they just get power play goals at the right time, and their goalie makes big saves. This year, those two things weren't clicking, so they fell apart. And that's, that the things that were, I guess, the negatives about their game that were overshadowed by the positives of their game totally crashed. And I think, I personally said it, like, I'm guilty of it. Like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. The Rangers power play helped them get to the conference final, and their goalie helped them get to the conference final. But now it's fucking destroyed. So you gotta fix it, So I'm guilty of it. So like, I could sit here and admit that.
Yeah, and then one more thing. Did you ever feel that there was a disconnect between Peter Laviolette and Chris Drury? Because we've seen some of the roster moves that Chris Drury made, during the season, in terms of claiming a guy like Arthur Kaliev, which that was a guy I wasn't too high on. So it wasn't my biggest problem, not playing him. But the fact that, Drury claims him as a guy with low potential and probably he could have some high upside, he barely plays until he ends up getting injured. Obviously the whole Calvin DeHaan thing both Calvin DeHaan and Yusuf Parson come over from Colorado. They both don't play a lot. And then, we ended up seeing the Calvin DeHaan quotes about, how basically, he felt that, basically he was kind of being mistreated in a way. And then, pretty much, and then the whole thing with like the Gabe Perreault thing, pretty much sitting him because you burn a year of his ELC with only 8 games to go. And listen, I get there's a whole thing, of having a Perreault having, leverage and stuff over that because, he could demand out. We've seen it before with a guy like Cutter Gauthier, but like, to me, it just doesn't make sense how, and I get that the Rangers were still technically in a playoff race until the bitter end. But, when you compare that to another organization like the Montreal Canadiens, and you see that they're also in that same situation, and then they bring in a guy like Ivan Demidov and trust him in that situation at the end. It's like, was there or did you notice a disconnect between those two?
He's having some connection issues. Yeah, we've seen that before with Anthony and his Wi-Fi. I'm gonna try to reach out to him just to make sure he's all right.
Well, hopefully that just snaps back on in.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny when he was talking about roles, guys, because if you all remember, you guys might have to go back and think about it because of the age gap. Phil could remember with me on John Muckler basically classifying Manny Malhotra as a third-line player or even a fourth-line center. And
he doomed him from the day one.
Yeah.
Which coach was this?
John Muckler. He basically ran down Malhotra at every chance that he got, and he turned him into a fourth-liner, basically.
Which is where he had the most success in his NHL career, but
yeah,
you can't do that with a kid when he's starting.
Sorry.
No, all good, buddy.
I got a call and it booted me out. Sorry, what was what I missed?
Nat, you were in the middle of something. I don't remember what exactly it was.
Yeah, it was just basically, did you ever feel or sense that there was a disconnect between Chris Drury and Peter Laviolette because of all I mentioned, I don't know how much you heard of it, but between the roster, I
got the Kaliev part and all that stuff. It's hard to not point the finger at that, right? I'm led to believe there was. I actually ask the question sometimes if like a GM kind of decides who's in the lineup versus who's not. And, that's not usually the case, even though sometimes I feel like it could be. But I also remember like John Scott, I think, told a story once when he was traded to the Rangers. And I guess Glenn Sather at the time and John Tortorella maybe wasn't aware of it. And Tortorella walked in the hallway and saw John Scott. He's like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "You traded for me or something." He's like, "Well, I don't know what the fuck we're gonna do with you." I don't know if I'm kind of paraphrasing a bit, but you can find that story's online somewhere. One of the better ones. But yeah, listen, I think GMs and coaches certainly have conversations all the time, but I don't know if a coach always has to agree with what the GM does. And that seems like it was the case this time around.
Johnny, where do you see them kind of like going from here? I know, like, obviously the next thing has got to be identifying, a head coach, but what are the next steps that we need to take here? Like, in terms of obviously after the coach, are we, any moves that you see them making, or any positions that you would think that they would be filling in the off season, or is there maybe do they re-talk to Buffalo again about JJ Peterka or so on, something like that?
I actually don't think the coach is like the next move.
Really?
If anything, I think the coach is like, at least this isn't anything I've heard. This is just my own like speculation. I would think they don't name a coach until like July even.
Wow.
What's the rush, right? Like you can't do anything with this team until September comes around anyway. And I think in the previous years, the hires they made were the guys who had the best resume that were available basically at that time, right? Like Gallant and Laviolette were the lead candidates just based on their own history. And right now, I think they can take the time to explore every possible option. Like you can talk internally, you can interview Michael Pekka, Dan Hughes, see what they have to say about how they'd handle things going forward. You can wait, maybe a team that gets eliminated in the playoffs like fires their coach. Who knows if someone disappoints? I think there's so many different things that can happen from here till the end of the postseason that it can change their entire outlook. But I still think that no matter who this coach is, the roster that's currently constructed is not good enough to compete for a Stanley Cup. So that's step number one. You can bring anyone you want in here, but if you have the team that they have on paper right now, what is that person going to do with them? Right. So, I think step one is actually going out and making the moves that you feel will make this group better. And then you have to actually like what you see on paper and then go find that voice that will get that team on paper to perform at its best. I don't think it's the coach and then the players. I think it's the players and then you find the voice that fits that roster the best. Again, that's just personal belief, not necessarily what I've heard. But it would not surprise me if the Rangers don't name a coach until July. And listen, I could easily be wrong about that. But that's just my own thought. I got time for like two more guys.
Yeah, no, I was just going to ask you how much more time you had left. So
yeah, like 3 o'clock.
Can I just jump in because my question was actually about the coaching, and I was going to ask you, how do you feel, at least from the room, like what kind of coach do you think they really are looking for? And my other question I need to ask you is, could you please personally thank Avery for me for taking the least intelligent fan graphic like a champion?
Yeah. What an idiot that kid is, huh? Yeah, I can personally thank him. And listen, the type of coach, I've been juggling with this a lot. I'm trying to find a word because, like, I don't think this is like some sort of retool, rebuild situation. It's almost like because they're not building it from the ground. Like they're not necessarily building it from the ground up, but they should. You know what I mean? Like this shouldn't be looked at as like, and it's hard not to, but like this historic original six, this pressure of winning in New York, like all this stuff. Like I think the last 3 years since that like Eastern Conference final run, they've gotten away from the whole rebuild thing because it was ahead of schedule. And now it's like there shouldn't, this is going to sound terrible for like a fan to hear, but like there shouldn't be so much pressure on the team to win this coming season. It should be like building something that you will be proud of and that can win maybe in 2 or 3 years.
I actually
like let next year be like a trial run, right? And then 2 years, because you have Igor now long term, you have Fox for a few more years, you have Trocheck, you have JT Miller, you have Lafreniere, you have all these guys now for the long run. So don't rush this, right? Make sure it's the right fucking guy. And make sure it's the right mentality that you can actually go and attack and feel good about the group that you have that can win a Stanley Cup. Because like even the team last year, as good as they were at their best, they were still 6 wins short. So you can't have that come around again. So listen, while I want to see this team be competitive next year and try to win a cup, like I think it's almost like let's try to build it over the next 18 months or so. And then, that 27 year, like, or 27, 28, like, go win a, you know what I mean? You can't rush it. That's what I'm trying to say. So, like, if you bring in a guy, like a coach, I guess, like, what is it? Sullivan, Tocchet, all these guys that are still with their teams that are being rumored, like, you can't put that much pressure on a roster right now that isn't made to do it. So, hopefully it's someone that can come in and, like, almost, like, create something that the guys believe in again and want to work toward, and then, build toward, and not have it be this, like, whole big pressure thing.
No, yeah, I actually agree, because that's where I'm trying to adjust my expectations, because I think next year is what you're saying, and I agree with this, that it needs to be like an evaluation period with this team.
Yeah, it can't just be like, oh, we have JT Miller now and Igor. Like, it's not like it's wasting years, but it's almost like you have to look at it in the spin of, like, it's building toward, like, I don't have the words for it right now, but you guys get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Johnny, when you look at some of the personnel on this team that are sort of had Jekyll and Hyde seasons, like Mika Zibanejad, like you look at, I'm going to flash his numbers real quick from the first half of the year to the second half of the year. Not exactly split with games, but one player that he almost seems to have it from shift to shift and game to game and had it in the worst possible year was K'Andre Miller, who really, he's an RFA. What exactly is his future with this team?
Offer sheet. I don't know. It's tough, man. Like, I thought last year when he beat the crap out of John Marino, or was it John Marino last year in the Devils?
Yeah, John Marino.
Yeah, John Marino.
Too small.
I thought that was going to give him such a big boost to, like, his physical confidence. Because, like, I know what, like, fighting does for your first time, like, what it makes you feel like as a player, like, granted not in the NHL, but it just gives you, like, a different demeanor about yourself that I don't think he ever really found. And it sucks. Like, does it hurt that he wasn't really able to play with Fox? I think that could have been a good spot for him. I'd be interested to see if the next coach does that, but I'm not so confident he'll be here next year. I think other teams might see something in him that, maybe hasn't been clicking here, and an offer sheet's possible. And obviously the Blues last year, made it acceptable again of some sort. But yeah, I'd say it's 50-50 right now if K'Andre is even here next year.
Yeah,
and that's not anything I've heard. Just kind of my own thoughts.
Yeah, reading the tea leaves is what we have to do all the time with this.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the obviously the exit interview quotes were not something you want to read if you're a fan or maybe even someone in the front office with K'Andre Miller. But Johnny, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah,
thank you.
I appreciate it. We all do.
Thanks, Johnny.
Hopefully, we'll be able to hear from you somewhat soon. Maybe next season we'll have you on again.
Yeah, later, boys. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Take care, Johnny.
Go Habs.
And that was Jonny Lazarus, everybody, which it's always awesome to have him on. And there he goes. We delved through a lot of stuff in the first 90 minutes of this. Let's have a little bit of fun, guys. Let's just a Big Apple Pick Ems. So let's start. I'm going to start with each one, go around. We'll start with you, Phil, and then go clockwise. Give about 2 sentences for each one. Phil, I'll start with you on this. Has Chris Kreider scored his final goal with the New York Rangers?
Yes. When you look at Will Cuylle getting the puck and giving it to Chris Kreider, I think that says it. I know Chris Kreider's quotes were that he wants to be here and everything like that, but I don't know how he's going to convince anybody that he wants to be here with the way that he played this year. Once again, playing through injuries, he's getting old. I think they're going to want to move on from him. I think part of the toxic environment was him and just not him just kind of being checked out. This is also a guy that has a lot of a long history of inconsistency in showing up night to night. So I think he's gone.
Matty.
Yeah, I think he's gone. I think, like Phil mentioned, the thing with Will Cuylle, he going over and getting the puck when he scored that goal in the final game of the season against Tampa. I think it's pretty much written in the stars that he's gone this offseason. And Listen, I think overall it's the right time to do it. I mean, it's clear from his actions and from his attitude that he's clearly checked out. And I think, if this team does want to go in the right direction of actually, building a solid, sustainable winner, I think it's time for Chris Kreider to go. And look, I always say that I appreciate Chris Kreider for the time that, he's given to this organization, to this franchise, because this is a guy that's stuck here for a long time. He's been here for 10 plus years. He's had some good memories here. So I'll always appreciate that. But listen, I get that, he's pretty much put out the words that he wants to stay here, but overall through his actions and through his attitude, like that doesn't speak to me of a guy that wants to be here. So it's time to move on in a different direction.
Joey?
Yeah, Kreider scored his last goal as a Ranger. And all I have to say really to like answer that definitively, if you don't trade Chris Kreider, that means you're coming back with the exact same core next year, because you probably cannot move Zibanejad unless you somehow convince him to waive his no move. You can't trade Panarin because of his no movement. What are you doing? How are you going to trade Trocheck? He's got a no movement clause. All these core pieces are here, right? You have to trade Kreider. He's the only contract that could be moved. And if you're keeping him, then Drury's an idiot. Then he's just an idiot because he's just doubling down on what he's got here. Some big move has to come this offseason, and it's got to start with Kreider.
Evan?
Yes, I think he's gone. Yes, I think that he scored his final goal. If I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here, just to throw this into it, I could see a world where he stays only because of the fact that I don't know what realistically the return would be, or if you have to package him with like a middle round pick to get rid of him just because of all of these injuries and a team's worried about him being damaged goods. So there's that side to it where I think maybe there's a chance they want to let him get some games next year, maybe build value back up and then move him in the middle of next season. But I would rather them not, because it's a distraction. I think it's more likely they do move him. I want to make that clear, but I was just playing devil's advocate a little bit there for why maybe he might not.
I remember his first NHL goal in the playoffs. I remember his first NHL goal of the regular season. I'll remember his final goal, even though I only got to watch it on replay because I was working that night, so I missed the actual goal itself. Chris Kreider has done a lot for this organization, but he's also a guy you're going to look at sort of in the same vein as Alexei Kovalev. There's talent that was left on the ice, and the Rangers weren't able to harness it. They were able to get it a little bit in 21-22, but not now. I think Chris Kreider has to be moved because of the Alexis Lafreniere contract. You need to expand his role. You're paying him more. You invested in him. He's the future. That's simple. Let's go back to those veterans we were talking about most likely to be moved. Mika Zibanejad or Artemi Panarin? Philk.
I'm not sure if either of these guys go. If I have to pick one, though, because of the question, it's definitely Zibanejad. Absolutely Zibanejad here. I think Panarin is still productive. He has 1 year left. You probably could get a little more in return for Panarin just because of the contract flexibility and the productivity. But Mika Zibanejad is probably the guy that needs to go out of these two.
Maddie?
God, this is a tough question. I think before the Panarin news, I would have said Panarin, and I'll probably end up still saying Panarin. And my reasoning is, like with Mika Zibanejad, I always say this, that he ultimately has the power of the full no movement clause, and he pretty much said that, from his exit interviews, that they negotiated a deal, that clause was put in there. He's going to exercise his right to not waive that no movement clause. And look, I'm hoping that they might be able to convince him. I don't have any faith in it. And with Panarin, I think you could move him, of course, if that whole controversy doesn't mess up anything and doesn't turn off teams from trading for him. And I think you could get more assets back for Panarin. And I think the other thing that makes Panarin easier to move than Mika is, Panarin only, while it's a bigger cap hit at $11.6 million, he only has 1 year left on his contract after this. With Mika, he has $8.5 million AAV left at 5 more years. So now you're talking about, which teams can actually take on that type of contract. So overall, I think it's much easier, and I think you would get a lot more back in return for a guy like Artemi Panarin.
Joey.
More likely, listen, Pierre-Luc Dubois got traded. They got him to waive his no move clause. I think personally, I think Zibanejad is more likelier than Panarin. Panarin was the only one that did anything this year. To me, he's not the problem on this team. If you're trading Panarin, I think that's stupid. If you're trading Panarin before you trade Zibanejad, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like that would bother me so much because Zibanejad is clearly one of the bigger issues with the Rangers, not Panarin. But Zibanejad, I'd say, more likely this offseason to be moved.
I'll give you good reason in a second, but first, Evan.
I agree with you, Joey, but I think that they are going to, or I think it's more likely, I should say, they move Panarin. I don't think either are going, but just with Zibanejad's comments basically right away saying, I signed the contract and they knew what they were getting into. I'm going to stay. He pretty much came out and said that where Panarin, it's at least maybe a little up in the air if he would waive or not. Plus, we also know that there were a couple of other destinations that he was considering in free agency, especially a team like Colorado that he said was probably the second choice there. So I would probably say Panarin's more likely to be moved. Plus, I don't want to bring up the controversy, but I don't know if that might factor into potentially them moving him. But I still would say neither are going, but more likely Panarin.
I'll go with that. It's going to be Panarin because Chris Drury is no fan of him. He's never been. Going all the way back to that first playoff run where he was very harshly critical. But this team is nowhere close to a Stanley Cup, and Panarin can bring back a haul right now. Holding on to him to the trade deadline, maybe if you're lucky, you get the Brock Nelson deal. But this guy, I think there's a little bit too much hate thrown at him from last postseason. He had a pretty good postseason. The reason why it's not a really good postseason is because, like Mika Zibanejad and pretty much Chris Kreider too, a lot of this core disappeared when Carolina was able to ratchet up the physical play. And then, yes, Chris Kreider had that hat trick, but really the Panarin was nowhere to be found in the Florida series, made a couple of nice passes. And same thing with Zibanejad, but Panarin you can get more out of right now. Why not just go do it? They're not close to a cup. It doesn't matter. Let's go to some of those defensemen we were talking about earlier, guys. The brighter future for these defensemen, K'Andre Miller or Matthew Schneider. Phil, starting with
Matthew
you.
Schneider.
Matthew Schneider. Braden Schneider.
I'm here live.
Hey, guys, this is what happens when you talk so much for a living. Eventually you say the wrong thing.
Wow.
Defenseman with a brighter future.
Brighter future. JT Miller or Matthew Schneider.
Yeah. JT Miller. How about Kevin Miller?
Kevin Miller. Yeah.
Ryan Miller.
Ryan Miller.
All right. So, Phil, once again, defenseman with a brighter future, K'Andre Miller or Braden Schneider?
I'm going to go K'Andre Miller, I guess. I mean, I think there's just more potential. Like, if he pans out, he's a better defenseman. I don't know how much better Schneider's going to get than this. I think he'll rebound if he's healthy. I don't Rob Schneider.
I can't say what I'm thinking. Also, Johnny Red's comment is making me laugh so much too for no reason. I wish I could say my thought.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to go K'Andre Miller here because I think Braden Schneider, when he's healthy, will play more like he did last year and maybe the year before. But how much better than that does he get? If Miller figures it out, he's either a 3 or a 2. I just don't know if Miller will ever figure it out. It's all up here with him. If he can let things like, a girlfriend issue really kind of throw his game off that badly, I don't think that I really don't think that he's cut out to really be here or take on the responsibility. So,
Matt, what do you think?
Mark, I know I asked you yesterday if I could go at C, none of the above on this one, and you told me no, so I have to pick one.
Yeah, it's got to be pick 'em.
I guess I will go with Keandre Miller just because I agree with the point with Filk. I don't know how much higher of a ceiling Braden Schneider has. Like, at least with Keandre Miller, at least if he does figure out the mental side and he corrects his inconsistency issues, I think he could be a really solid defenseman just because, like I said, he's got the big stature, so he has a big body, which is an advantage. He is a good skater. He has the offensive upside. It's just he has to figure out his mental issues and his whole, defensive issues. I think if he does that, and I think if he does ultimately do that, I think it's going to be somewhere else for another team. I don't think it's going to be here. But if he does, I agree with Phil. I think he could be a solid, second pair defenseman.
Joe, what do you think?
Keandre Miller's got more upside there. I mean, they paired him with Fox for a little bit this season. The numbers were pretty good. I mean, just in the beginning of the year, Keandre Miller didn't have like a good individual performance in that regard, but I mean the pair itself did well. But he makes plays that other defensemen just can't make because of his athleticism. And Schneider, I feel like we already seen what we have, like what he is, and Miller is just inconsistent. But we've seen what he could do like at his very best. So I'd say Miller has the brighter future.
I just want to spotlight this comment and just mention something real quick because Gallery Man was saying put Miller back to a forward position. I wonder what type of forward he would be, and that's not a crazy thing to do because after all, San Jose did that with Brent Burns, and then they moved him back to D. And
yeah, but Brent Burns was drafted as a center.
Yeah,
he was drafted as a center, and Keandre Miller has literally not played forward. I would say probably since about 2015 or 16. So it's about 10 years that he has not played forward.
I'm just saying the idea wasn't crazy. That's all. Evan, what do you think?
You can't have a $4 to $5 million fourth line forward.
That I agree.
Yeah, that, and I mean he wasn't good enough to crack the NHL as a forward, so
he wasn't good enough to get drafted as a forward.
That's exactly my point. Yeah, he wasn't good enough there. So, if I had to pick, I don't know. I guess I would say Miller, but it's not going to be here. His success, he's going to go somewhere else where they're going to get him mentally straight, and he's going to end up being the defenseman that we thought he would maybe be when he was drafted. Because my problem with Schneider is what I talked about earlier. It's that they continue to put guys ahead of him on the depth chart, despite saying, we believe in him. We believe in him. Then they, give Trouba the $8 million, and then they go ahead and, well, the Trouba $8 million was before they drafted him, but that was part of the reason I was against the pick. And then they go out and get Borgen and give him a 5-year extension. And it's like, so is he going to be your second pair guy or not? Because there's a logjam here. So it's going to be hard for him to excel. I would say Miller just because of that. But again, it's not going to be here if he does have that future. If the question is strictly who has the brighter future here, I would probably lean Schneider then.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards Schneider too. And the only reason why is because there's more consistency with Schneider. I can't wait to see what these comments you guys are laughing at.
Carson's.
Okay. But by the way, speaking about the Igor contract truthers, I don't think there's anybody on this panel that thinks that contract is
no,
a
good.
It was he's gone now, so no.
A bunch of guys who just literally kept regurgitating a bunch of advanced stats about how good Igor is and how basically they admitted that it comes down to, we're going to lose 2-1 instead of 4-1. Awesome. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
I was very entertained by that.
I haven't decided. I'm still like in between. I don't have an opinion on the contract. I'll just say that. That's it.
Yeah, I still think it's terrible. You're going to be paying him $11.5 million when he's 38 years old. Good job. Yeah. And I could go to the good numbers later on Igor because we're going to talk about that when we go to Bar Talk, guys. But let's go to the forwards because what forward has a brighter future? Alexis Lafreniere or Will Cuylle? Once again, starting with Phil.
I mean, Lafreniere has the greater potential. I mean, this was Lafreniere. This was a down year from last year for Lafreniere. I will say this. I don't think the gap is as big as some might think because I think Will Cuylle can develop into a 30-30-60 guy. Like, I think Will Cuylle could give you what Tom Wilson gave Washington this year. I think Will Cuylle just needs to do a couple of things. He needs to improve his hands. I think his skating will improve a little bit. Not that it's bad. I think he can do that. I think he needs to get power play time because I think that's your next like bumper in net front presence right there. He's big. He has the willingness to go there and fight for those pucks in those dirty areas. So I do think Cuylle could be like a legitimate top 6 forward one day. I just think Lafreniere, if everything works out with him, this is a guy that's easily a point per game, if not more, player.
Matt,
this is tough because I think Alexis Lafreniere does have the higher ceiling in terms of potential and overall, just pure raw talent. However, the thing with Alexis Lafreniere, and it's really been a concern from me from this year especially, is how much is it in his head and is it the want factor? Because you could have more talent, but if you don't have the work ethic and the drive and the want to be better and to take that next step, then a guy like Will Cuylle, who maybe doesn't have that in terms of that same raw talent. Will Cuylle, though, has the work ethic and the want to get better because we've seen him. He had a decent rookie year, kind of, tailed off towards the end, but he took that next step again this year. And like what Phil said, like I could really realistically see him become like a 30, 60 point guy because, again, he has that will and that want to drive. So it's tough just because of the want factor and that wanting to get better. I'll say Will Cuylle.
Joey.
Higher ceiling, brighter future is Lafreniere. And now, don't get me wrong, like Cuylle had a great year. I definitely think he could be like Phil said, like a 30-30 guy. Like that's realistic for him. But Lafreniere, if he builds off of what he did last season, again, there's the key word. If I see some people in the chat,
if man,
yeah. Same deal as Keandre Miller. Really, it's like he's got such a high ceiling and I mean, just being a former number 1 overall pick too. Yeah, he's got to work harder though. Like the back checking issues, that's got to stop. That's got to stop next year. And I think he still needs to get faster, a little bit stronger too. If he works on that, he'll have a brighter future. But Cuylle could be a consistent middle 6 guy for the Rangers. Lafreniere at his peak can be like a first line winger. And the Rangers need that.
I'm glad, by the way, you brought up the defense because everyone's perception about a player is better when they're two-way. If they're just one-sided, you're like, so what?
Yeah, like look at Team USA and 4 Nations. Every single player on that team was like a complete player. Every single player played defense, forward, defense, doesn't matter. Like I got so much respect for all those players. Like I never knew anything about them before. I respect every single one of those players now. Yeah.
All right. And of course, Evan, going with you first.
To me, the answer is pretty easy. For me, it's Will Cuylle by a good margin as well. And the reason that I say that is because even on his worst nights, you notice him. With Lafreniere, when things are bad for him, like it is really bad. At least Will Cuylle is going to consistently give a good effort. There might not be the production every night the way Lafreniere does, because no question Lafreniere has the higher ceiling. But I think if we removed the draft label from both these players, I think every single one of us would say Will Cuylle by a long shot because he's the most noticeable guy. He was night in and night out throughout the season. There was like a 2-week stretch maybe in January or February where he didn't look great, but that's really about the only time where I was like, yeah, Will Cuylle doesn't look good right now, and he's making some dumb plays. Where Lafreniere, it's the entire season. A lot of it's just lazy. So sure, Lafreniere might outproduce Cuylle, but to me, what matters the most is that I'm going to notice Will Cuylle every single night, and he's going to give an effort, and that's a guy that you win 16 games with.
Yeah, I got to tell you, you're right about that one. I'm going to choose Will Cuylle right now, but I'm also going to say one person can answer this question definitively for us, and that's Alexis Lafreniere. Be the player you were drafted to be. And I think part of the problem is the Rangers kind of put him on the third line, said, you figure it out, played guys like Colin Blackwell and Dryden Hunt over him. Then they also look. You got a career year of Chris Kreider, and again, it's Artem Panarin, so he couldn't exactly go to left wing. But this is also where Will Cuylle Alexis Lafreniere had to come around and go, all right, well, if I can't play there, where can I play? I credit a lot of people in pro sports that if there's a logjam, figure out where to go. That's one thing to do. And Will Cuylle, he's literally finding his own space because he's hitting and destroying everybody that's on the ice. So I made the short about comparing his hit on Alex Pietrangelo to when Thor knocked the world serpent back in time in God of War. So, I mean, even though I use that same thing for Alexander Romanov too. And the next question that goes with him specifically, do you bridge him or do you go long-term? I'll start this one off, send it back the other way and say, unfortunately, I think you have to bridge him. I would love to go long-term, give him like a 6-year deal, but you got to bridge him. Evan, what do you think? Do you bridge him or a long-term?
First of all, I do have to I have to own up to something here with this question since I posted it. Joey, you were the inspiration of this one because I was listening to your podcast this morning and I heard you talking about inspirational D. Inspired the question because I heard you talking about this exact conversation, and I thought it would be a good idea to talk about this. I think you got to go long term because every single time we talk about the cap's going up, that does not matter unless you have guys already locked up on contracts that are going to become steals over time because you locked them up early. And I'm tired of it being, the Rangers who get screwed over by this because they don't extend some of their young guys early. I think you got to go long term with him and give him. I don't know what a fair price range would be. You'd probably have to go 6.5 if you're going long term with them, just to keep it in the right ballpark there, which I would do because with the cap going up, that's going to become a steal at some point over time. And if you truly believe this guy's going to be a middle six forward for you, and you extended Chris Kreider at 6.5 in that cap economy, 6.5 for Will Cuylle is going to look like even more of a bargain. So I think you got to go. And then we were just talking about before too, next year should be an evaluation period anyway. So why not? Because Panarin's contract's coming off the books the year after, and then you have a couple of other contracts coming up. So you kind of go lateral there, especially with Cuylle to Kreider with the contracts.
It's going to be tight with the cap space because the Rangers have a little under $10 million in cap space this offseason. But absolutely, the Rangers need to be locking Will Cuylle up to an eight-year deal. It has to be done. He's 23 now. Take him till 31. And if you could even get it to like 6 or 5.5, like if you could negotiate with him a little bit, that is well worth it. And yeah, I mean, everything Evan just said pretty much. Like if you're going to have to move some other pieces too. Like if you want to go long term, like I said, there's not a lot of cap space. You got to move Kreider out. You got to trade Carson Soucy. Like no ifs, ands, or buts, because you got to bring back the other guys. Like I think Edstrom is due for a contract too. Rempe too. They have to figure out what they're going to do with Keandre Miller. Then they have to fill in the rest of their defense. But if you go 6.5, like 5.5, 6.5 million with Cuylle, you got to get rid of the cap space, at least for this next season. You have to get rid of it now.
Matt.
Yeah, I would look to extend them long term. I think, teams have to start doing this where they take a page out of the Atlanta Braves book and they start finessing the system with their under the radar contract extensions. But I think this is a guy that, you could sign him long term for like 7-8 years and you could get him at a relatively good cap price, like we were saying, like $6.5 million. The only thing though that worries me, and I forgot who brought this up. I think it might have been in the spaces that Statboy Steven was doing yesterday. But does him and his agent maybe hold out and want a bridge deal because they know the cap's going up? So maybe they think that if they wait 2 years with 2 or 3 years with a bridge deal, that maybe that they could look to get a higher AAV, a couple years down the line instead of just getting the $6.5 million for 8 years. So for me personally, I would look to lock him up long term, but that's not up to me.
And lastly, Phil, to close this out, you bridge them, going long term.
we want to do and what may actually happen might be two different things. So
That I agree with.
Everybody wants long term, and yes, that's what you should do. Does his camp want to do that?
That I agree with.
That's the thing. And Jeff Filippi, Steven's podcast, one of his two podcast partners, brought that up yesterday. I thought that was a great point. With the cap going up, he may want to bet on himself. And he may have every right. And like I said, if I think that he could be a 30-30-60 guy, does his camp believe that as well? Do they want to take that bet on himself? I mean, they could come back next year. He could get a bridge this year right now, probably for like 4 and change. I think we would agree on that. Probably somewhere in that area. We all would agree.
Yes.
Something like that.
So what's to say that he goes out there and, Matt and Joey and Evan, you guys all brought up the same point about how he's a guy that you shows up every night. He gives you it. Evan, you called him a 16-game player. That's the type of guy that will probably go out there and earn that contract. That's a guy that's going to be completely motivated to get that next deal. And if he does, the Rangers are going to have a hell of a problem with that because he's going to be productive and he's probably going to command something higher than Lafreniere's AAV if he gets to be a 30-30-60 player. That's going to be a big chunk of change in a few years. Might it end up being a steal for the life of the contract? Yes. But at that time, that's going to be a hell of an AAV to fork up to a player like that. So, yes, I would personally say, you know what? Screw that bridge deal. Give me him at 8 years, $48 million tomorrow. Like tomorrow. I'm not even – I give him that right now. Whether or not his camp wants to accept that, that's another story.
Another reason why his camp should, I think, go long term right now. I mean, I'm thinking that they should. The Rangers have traditionally not done it. But when you play the physical position, I think you want to get that long-term money when you're younger because when your body's worn down, when you're older, you're not likely going to get that big deal.
My only counter to that is that if Will Cuylle in this span that leads to the UFA years wins a cup, a team's going to see a guy that plays physical and has won a Stanley Cup, then that's going to attract an absurd amount of money. That's just what it is in the NHL. That's the only counter I have to that.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it gets to the point where Will Cuylle does win a cup. And because we know where he'd be doing it right now. Guys, we're going to take a quick break for DraftKings and then come back with some NHL Bar Talk, or it's got another name from another family.
Get the hoop, boys. It's coming.
Hoop.
Hockey fans light the lamp this winter with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. New customers can bet just $5 pre-game money line on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. If that wasn't enough excitement, you can turn small bets into bigger payouts with same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more for your shot at an even bigger payout. Download the DraftKings Sports app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet $5 on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at the DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN.
Shot. This is the easiest I've ever had to answer.
I'm going to say beer. I can't even begin to describe.
I'm actually going to go crazy. I'm going to buy everybody around on this one. Evan, would you like to do the intro?
You want me to pull up the one that I copy and paste?
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Let's go over. And welcome back, everyone, to Big Apple Hockey's Layup Talk. Are you so confident that you are going to be doing self-alley-oops? Are you so that you're going to put up a mid-range shot? Or are you going to say it's a shot layup? Play along with us in the comment section down below. It is hoop time.
Although I was running to go get the hoop, but I still have things a little bit that I misplaced in the move. So that is my fault on that one, guys. Literally, I have the men who gave me the hoop on this one. But play along down in the comments below. You're so confident that you're buying around, so I'll have a beer. Or, oh, God, I need a shot. Please play along down in the comments below. Guys, we're going to start with this one. And I'm I'm actually going to start with Matt on this one and go around because let's get the younger guys first, and then we'll get to the older guys. This is the worst New York Rangers season of all time. Matt, go ahead. Start it off.
I mean, I know for you and Phil, you probably, it's probably not for you because you guys have the 92-93 season, so you have more years of experience. But for me, Joey and Evan, this is clearly get the hoop. This is a layup. The backboard is broken. There's glass all over the court. It's just shattered. I mean, yeah, without a doubt, because I was born 2003, so I didn't get to see the 92-93 season. I also didn't get to see any of the dark age years. But for me, and because my first season watching was 09-010, so yeah, for me, this is just the worst season of all time that I've seen personally. The brand of hockey was terrible, just dysfunction from top to bottom. So many unlikable players, so many players underperforming. The Rangers are lost in terms of the front office. They have dinosaur analytics. Chris Drury doesn't know what he's doing. So yeah, for me, it's a round. It's a layup.
Joey, is this the worst season you've ever endured?
Yeah, this is like the easiest layup of all time for me. Honestly, I'm with Matt. I started watching in 2009, 2010, and so ever since then, I feel like I've been pretty privileged to see some good Rangers teams make some deep playoff runs. But I mean, this year with all the drama off the ice and then the expectations of being a cup contender and to not even make the playoffs, yeah, easy layup.
Evan, smashing that hoop.
Yeah, Lob City, the Blake Griffin jerseys in the
He's
background.
got a basketball in his hand right now.
And the Blake Griffin jerseys in the background for a reason. This is the easiest layup I think we have in the history of layup talk, to be honest with you, at least for me, because like Joey, 09-10 was the first season I endured, and this team right now has me missing like the Ryan Sproles of the world and the rebuilding squad, or the rebuild, because we shouldn't even call it a rebuild. But for me, yeah, this is easily the worst season, just with all the drama, all the toxicity, just really made it a nightmare. And I nearly, like I said, had to be instituted with the way the season was unfolding in December. So yeah, this is broken backboard, like Johnny's saying.
Phil, go ahead first.
It's rough because I mean I'm gonna say beer, just because like there's merit to this. This is probably the most unlikable group I've watched, at least the 92-93 team. Like they were trying. The injuries to Leach and the toxicity between Messier and Nielsen really kind of caused their downfall that year. But that was something that had been brewing for a little bit. But this level of dysfunction is just horrendous. The last year of AAV in 2017-18 was just terrible too. He just made a lot of stupid decisions where you're just like, what are you doing? And how did you ever become this team's head coach? And we're saying this, 3-4 years after he took the team to a Stanley Cup final in his first season. It's just, there's a lot of dysfunction. The Dark Ages are also bad because of the fact that they were giving up first-round picks almost every year to fall this short of the playoffs. So it kept them in a continuous loop of mediocrity, and there wasn't really a future to look toward to. They were a lack of prospects. I mean, your best prospects, the ones that they held on to, were like Jamie Lundmark. Like, we thought Jamie Lundmark was going to be something special. Pavel Brendel was their top prospect for a while until they dealt him in the Eric Lindros trade. I gotta say that we this is close, but it's a beer for me.
Philk, and by the way, speaking about which, then there would be prospects that they trade like Kim Janssen or Marek Zidlicki that then go up and blow up elsewhere. And it makes you go, geez, what were the Rangers even thinking? Even PJ Stock did better elsewhere. This was hard for me, guys. I really was going to say 92-93 was worse than this. until last week's headline. I'm not going to go into further detail on that. Yeah, it's this season. I'm with you. And now it is a layup. I have given my own self alley-oop layup. I have done it, Evan. An easy layup for me. This one is an easy one. And again, this is, you could say everything you want about the Rangers. I was embarrassed to be a Ranger fan last week.
I still am. Chipotle had the buy one, get one yesterday. I pulled in with my Leafs jersey instead of a Ranger jersey.
I mean, it truly was like, you could say anything you want. Brian Leetch slipping on ice. If you want to go back into the original 6 era where they finished at the bottom every single year, but at least the guy had guys like Charlie Rayner, Harry Howell, or Andy Bathgate. But then you look at some of the dark ages in the 70s, John Ferguson, those stupid jerseys, and Rod Gilbert retiring, and Espo coming in, and that trade that still was lopsided the other way for Boston, but the Rangers made the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, it's so difficult to look at this season and think anything positively, other than the fact that my wife and I went to a bunch of games, including Vegas. That's how it is. By the way, guys, we got 500 people right now watching in the chat, so let's keep it on going. And Joey, I'll start with you in this one. Igor Shesterkin will statistically rebound. I'll flash some of these stats for you, like the fact that he led the league in, he was under 500 for the first time in his career, 905 save percentage, and a 286 goals against. But he did lead the league in shots against and saves. And here's his save percentage and goals against. Joey, will he rebound statistically?
Yeah, I mean, if he led the league in shots against and saves, I would hope that the defense gets a little bit better than this year. I don't know. I have a lot of faith in Shesterkin. I know he goes with the mental resets a lot. I know you guys talk about that all the time, but I tend not to doubt Shesterkin because he always proves me wrong. If I've ever criticized him, he'll have a stretch where he plays awful, lets in like 4 or 5 goals a game, and then like January this year, I think it was the beginning of January this year, he went on like a crazy run before the I think, is that what it was, guys? Was it the beginning of January? Yeah. He had like a crazy run, and then that Colorado game at MSG he had like a really bad stretch. But I feel very confident that he'll rebound. So that's a layup for me.
Okay. Evan.
I'll say beer, just because we're talking about, the defense, hopefully it's going to be better and everything, but most of the decor is locked in, and that's what we were talking about earlier. Outside of Keandre Miller, everyone's locked in, so the decor is not changing. Maybe you get help from the coaching staff that comes in for a bit. Maybe they'll boost them and have them play a better structure, which will help. But then again, I don't know if these players will buy in, and that's a conversation that we're having. So, I'd hope that it's going to be better, because when you're making $11.5 million, then, your numbers should be good, because that's why everyone argued the contract, right? Because he's the only chance this team makes the playoffs. Isn't that the argument we heard? So
yeah.
I would hope that it's going to be better, but I don't know, because of the team in front, and on top of that, we can't ignore the fact that statistically, and people will spew goal save above expected, everything at us, but statistically, just looking at save percentage and all those other stats, he has regressed every single year. So I can't confidently say it's around just because of that alone.
His goal saves above expected has also regressed. So that's another one. Sam Montebeau had a better goal saves above expected. Phil.
Before Phil gets into it, I'm just gonna go ahead and say I gotta go, guys. I appreciate you guys having me on the show. This is great. I love this. I love talking with you guys. Your fans are awesome. Really had there's a lot of laughs today.
Showing love, D.
Yeah, I know. I have to.
Go enjoy the farm day.
Farm
do it
game.
again sometime. All right. Bye, guys.
Take care, Joey.
Joey. Ice Cold Takes. Make sure you subscribe to him.
Yeah, definitely, leave a like, share, and subscribe, everybody. Definitely show some love to Joey, too. Joey works hard on his stuff. These guys work hard on their stuff, too. Rangers Central, definitely show them love, like, share, and subscribe. If you haven't already, please do. But to get back to this, I got to go. Every time Igor gets brought up, someone signs off. It's like they're taking hits out on us. Yeah, I got to go beer. It's because the reason why I'm so opposed to giving goaltenders $10 million contracts and above is that goaltending is dependent on the team in front of them, no matter what anybody says. The only exception to that rule has ever been Dominik Hasek. That's it. That's a guy who won 6 Vezina trophies in an 8-year span with a total of 5 Vezina votes being given to him. 5. I'm not talking about somebody finishing in 5th place. I'm talking about 5 total Vezina votes. Vezina votes. Fucking Norris votes. Sorry. But you have that kind of numbers, and it's Alexis Zhitnin with 4 in 1998, and Daryl Shannon with 1 was probably a homer vote in 1999. You cannot win with your goaltender being your absolute best player and the team in front of you being shit. Sorry, guys. Oh, my God. Yeah, but the thing is that you're not going to win that way. And his play is going to depend just as much on him being in a better state mentally as it is going to be the team in front of him. The structure, the coaching, the roster makeup, everything. So, yes, I think he's a candidate for a bounce back with numbers this bad. And, yes, it's not all his fault. But you cannot have another stretch where you have to go, and sit for another month where Jonathan Quick bails you out again. And who's to say that Jonathan Quick, especially the way that he played towards the end of this season, who's to say that he's going to be able to bail them out?
I have a lot of concerns about that.
There's a tremendous amount of concerns about that, and everybody should have that.
Who's to say? So, you know what? I'm going to say beer, but there's a lot of gray area and elements that are going to factor into this that are out, not only with him, but outside of his control, too.
Guys, I got to go beer on this one. And I've been his harshest critic. But, one reason why I have to go beer is look at those numbers. He set those numbers so low. If he doesn't surpass those, the Rangers should seriously think about shooting Chris Drury. It's that simple. All right. Well, everybody knows you're
monetized.
All right. Everybody knows a joke, but still. And yeah, all right. I apologize immediately for the comment, but you guys know what I'm saying with that. Like that's a ridiculous thing. You can't. Yeah, if he goes, let's say he goes to a 3 goals against and a sub 900 save percentage. Are we still sitting there talking about him being the best goalie in the league? And that's what he's being paid. It's enough where what are they thinking with this? And look, I could concede this. The most shots against and the most saves against. Good for you. But does that mean he's overworked now and he's blown to smithereens? Other than Curtis Joseph, how many guys constantly have been able to do that, deal with that many shots? These are career low numbers, and Igor is not that mentally tough guy. He's not Henrik Lundqvist. We've said this a million times. It's just he's not. So, all right. And guys, I'm gonna flash these numbers right now.
Hold on, I didn't get the answer.
Oh, Matt, you didn't?
Yeah, no.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
For me, I'm gonna say beer. Look, do I think he could do it? Sure, but the problem is that the defensive core next year is going to be the same defensive core that basically end of this season, unless there's a couple changes here and there. Obviously, Keandre Miller is a guy that could get moved, and maybe Chris Drury does end up flipping Carson Soucy. But for the most part, this defense, of course, is going to stay together. The lack of a defensive structure, again, is going to prevail. So Igor is going to be facing a ton of high danger chances again last year. And look, again, this is why, and we've all said it, this is why you don't overpay goaltending in the NHL. And I don't want to hear, if Igor, again, has another poor statistical season next year, that I don't want to hear fans making the excuses and his defenders saying that, oh, but look at the defense in front of him. No, you put yourself in this position because you chose to overpay a goaltender by a couple $1 million instead of reinvesting that type of money into better defensemen in front of him. So could he do it? Sure. But, the defense is certainly not going to help him next year.
And Matt, by the way, just apologize because I think when we reordered, that's when I got a little bit confused.
No, you're good, Mark.
All right, guys, let's look at someone
this is Mark right now to Chris Drury.
Maria's comment.
If anybody follows AEW and just knows the reference, it's when Arn Anderson talked about pulling out a Glock and having Cody Rhodes being in the situation where he had a Glock pulled to his head, and Mark is definitely Arn Anderson in that situation.
I think
I'm
Chris
not
Drury
advocating anything like that.
I think Chris Drury now has graduated the Ebola list and made it to a list somehow above that.
The shot list.
I don't know what's above Ebola besides Patrick Nemeth.
Well, there you go. That's where we are then. Maria say, please don't mention Talbot.
Well, don't worry. We're going to be talking more about Chris Drury in a minute, but let's start with these numbers for Mika Zibanejad, guys. You saw me flash numbers to Johnny earlier. From October to December, 21 points. That was, I believe, in 35 games. Then you look at the rest of it, 41 points. And then the little bit of the JT Miller effect really kind of gave him a springboard. But Mika Zibanejad moved to wing when he had to play with JT Miller. Mika at wing corrects his issues. Evan, start us off.
I'm going to say, I'll say shot, because the reason I have to say it is the Mika Zibanejad that got that $8.5 million was not the player that we're seeing now. The Mika Zibanejad that earned that contract was not only just a play driver, but a dynamic goal scorer. Like that 5-goal game, scoring those 5 goals in different ways really defined why Mika got that contract. It wasn't because of the fact that he's on the wing, which, yes, I get the argument is that it will revitalize it, but now you're basically putting him at JT Miller's hip, which to me is still a replacement level player at that point, and it's a little bit of an overpay at the very least there. So I have to go shot on that just because of, it's not going to change the fact that he's a passenger now.
Maddie?
Yeah, this is a shot for me. And to quote the great Anthony Loracco, who's the hack that came up with this question? No, listen, did Mika Zibanejad play a little bit better when JT Miller came up here, when he got traded here from Vancouver and he got put on that line with JT Miller? Sure, he did. But again, like what Evan was saying, that was more the fact that, it wasn't because of Mika Zibanejad's play. It was because of JT Miller and the fact that he was the one play driving on that line. And also like what Evan mentioned, that, the Mika Zibanejad that got the $8.5 million that was play driving and actually contributing and scoring at a higher rate, that Mika Zibanejad is gone. And, like I said, if we start to see him put up points again, I think that's going to be more from the fact that, he was just being a passenger on the line, and it's a guy like JT Miller who's the guy that's actually play driving. So, and again, I don't think Mika Zibanejad is a guy that you can win with in the playoffs. I think he's too soft, and I think that once the pressure goes on, I think he folds. So it's a shot for me.
Phil?
We just lost Mark.
Chris Drury got in.
Yeah, Chris Drury got in. Chris Drury saw that and was like, nope. Nope.
Mark got swatted.
Oh, man. I mean, some of these questions and these comments in the chat are all very, very valid. I don't know. And I'll say beer just because I don't think he's a center anymore. I think he might have declined test to the point of the fact where he just cannot play center. And maybe $8.5 million for a guy that could be a point per game winger could be someone that's Shesterkin again. Oh my God. Yeah, I think that maybe you can get more out of him at the wing. I don't know if it necessarily corrects the issues. I mean, that wording is kind of vague. And
yes, I'll go into why I kind of went that vague with that.
Yeah, by design, there it is.
A little bit.
There's the by design mark.
By design.
But it maybe you can get away with having an $8.5 million winger who is a point per game winger. Maybe he gives you 25 to 30 goals and maybe 80 or so points playing on Miller's wing. But yes, I agree with Matt, and I've said this before about him. He's not somebody you win with. And people said, people gave me a lot of shit for talking about Panarin, and he did the same thing that Zibanejad did. He disappeared when the series got tougher and tighter as they went along and deeper into the playoffs. Both those guys completely disappeared. And you'll probably never win with those guys because they just don't have the gusto, the mental makeup, the guts, the balls, the cojones, whatever the fuck you want to call it, to really be that guy. They're no and listen, I don't expect everybody to be on Nathan MacKinnon's level, but I want somebody with Nathan MacKinnon's drive.
Yeah.
I don't care if you piss every single teammate off the way that him and Michael Jordan would. If you win, that's all I give a shit about. Yep. Winning. That's it. It's the name on the front, and it's the Stanley Cup, and everything else is an afterthought. So, yeah, I don't know if it necessarily corrects the issues, but maybe it's Oh my God, we're not highlighting that comment.
Oh
we're
boy, I gotta see what that one says.
No,
all right.
Not even. Nope.
Nope.
We're not highlighting that one either.
All right. Well, guys, I'm going to go with a beer on this one as well because we're going to go back to the sentence and it says it corrects his issues. Yes, suddenly he's not a minus 26, but you know what? They're not paying you to be a wing. They're paying you to be a center. At best, I'm going to say this at best. The Rangers might get another Matt Zuccarello out of this, but he was also making far less money. And the second part of it is Mika ain't Matt Zuccarello because Matt Zuccarello brought it every single night. Mika
does.
Yeah, Mika folds like a deck chair. Like, come on. Like, Mika, you got to be at least stronger than that mentally. Like, there's no way you're this bad. There's just no way. But if he's a winger and the Rangers are paying him $8.5 million to be kind of good at wing, that doesn't help anything. It'll correct his issues. It won't correct the Rangers. So
he's been dog shit.
Yeah. If only we had that video clip. All right.
Man, these comments are getting savage, man. Oh my God.
This is my fault. My chat. That's mostly my chat.
Well, no worry about that because I'll be able to take a look at some of them in a moment. But
Kevin Wright has been on an absolute heater in like this chat.
He's on the money every time he's in
been
my
on
chat.
the money. Like there are so many good points that this guy has brought up, and he's a mutual follow on my Twitter. But unbelievable point there. And not only that, but remember when they actually benched him for that one game, and then he must have went and cried to whoever, maybe it was Drury, and then he was back on the top line and power play unit the next game.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, what were we doing there?
It's a good question because other
I'm
players.
Start this one from you, Nick. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Because other players are going to need that playing time, Philk. And let's go right to this guy, Matt. Gabriel Perreault will be a top 6 forward next season. Start us off.
Okay, can I just ask, is the question that he's going to play in the top 6 or that he's going to play like a top 6 winger? I just want that.
He's going to play in the top 6 as a top 6 winger, like one, and it'll be at the beginning of the season.
I'll go beer just because I don't trust this organization one bit. Like, they could say that cool that they want to turn a direction and go in terms of younger and actually developing people, but until I actually see it with my own two eyes, I do not believe them for one bit. So, listen, do I think Gabe Perreault can have the talent to be a really good top 6 forward in the NHL? Yes, I do. Am I still a little worried about his skating? Yes, I think he still needs to improve upon it to be that full dynamic playmaker that he can be at the NHL level, because I've always said his hockey IQ is there. He's one of the smartest players that I've probably watched come up through the last couple of drafts. So I think the IQ is there. It's just in terms of the skating, and will the Rangers actually put him in that position to develop and actually be better? So I'll go Beer.
Yeah. Evan, what do you think?
I think that I'm disappointed in you for spelling his last name wrong. I'm disappointed in that.
I got him.
But
yeah, you spelled it wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a second E.
Yeah.
But to answer the question, I'm gonna go with Shot, because I think that when I look at the roster already, we're talking about how Zibanejad needs to be on the wing now, on top of Lafreniere, who's there, Panarin's there, Cooley's getting time, and you have to imagine that they're going to get a veteran winger or some sort of veteran forward this offseason, which also factors into the equation of, okay, where does Gabe fit in the top 6? And I really just think, I could be wrong here, but I get this feeling that they're going to start him in Hartford next year, because we didn't see him play in some crucial games down the stretch here, even though they were pretty much out of it. They just didn't want to admit they were out of it. So if he can't play in these games with this lineup, if they're going to add veteran forwards into the fold next season, then how is he going to fit in to next year's lineup? So I got to go Shot on it.
Phil? If I would have had
John Gabriel Pro.
You forgot you have to remove the second E there, Kevin.
Oh my god.
Yeah. All right. Well,
yeah, I gotta go Beer here, and I'm gonna refer back to what Jonny Lazarus was saying before. I mean, if this guy comes in and they think that he is ready to play a top 6 forward role, then they're going to put him there. And if not, then he may end up starting off the season in Hartford. And it may not be the worst thing in the world for his development. Like, have we not learned from rushing players and putting them in non-optimal positions to really kind of develop and grow as players? Like, have we really not learned from that? We're just going to, throw this guy to the fire right away and, hope that he makes it. I would love to see nothing more than him come out like a house of fucking fire and just start producing left and right. And he puts up like a 60-point rookie season. Like, that would be like, okay, my faith in humanity is slowly being restored. Like, my will to live is coming back, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. That's it's high expectation. It's a team that may be in a reevaluation type of state next year. There's going to be some big changes. I don't know. It's a lot to ask for a 20-year-old kid to come up and be a top 6 forward right off the bat. And I had my concerns about his skating. I think his skating is a little better off than I thought it would be at this level. He didn't look too far behind the play. There is definitely a lot of room for improvement there. There's also a lot of room for improvement with his strength and his conditioning. Not that his conditioning is necessarily bad. Please stop talking about Colin Blackwell. My God.
That's why I had that reaction.
Oh, God.
Especially after that overtime goal last night. I know that's going to really rile up Ranger fans after seeing that. But, it's a lot to ask. It is. So, Beer, I'm not expecting a ton, but if it ends up being a pleasant surprise type thing, then absolutely I'm there for it.
I got to go with Evan on this one, and I hate to say it because they got to figure out like where he slots in top 6. You got Zibanejad on the wing. I still think Zibanejad should be, at least they should be trying him at center, because maybe that'll help the Rangers center depth greatly instead of hindering it. But it's just, I want it to happen where he's a top 6 forward. But you're also right about this too, Phil, because it's like there's a lesson that the Rangers need to learn from not rushing a player, or at least having a plan for a player. How about that one? Sort of like what they didn't have with the last forward they drafted from Boston College, who's right now on the trade block. Because when Kreider came up, it was like a tug of war between him and Sather, and going through the process constantly. Tortorella was talking about that. I think he might have to start in Hartford. I think it's going to happen. I'd love to come out with just absolutely on fire. But I mean, it's probably not going to happen. So shot for me on that one. And guys, one last one, and we're going to take some user questions and comments. But are you guys ready for this?
Viewer, not user.
What? Oh, well, yeah, viewer.
I'm scared because I didn't read the ones before.
Yeah, I couldn't come up with a fourth one. This is what I came up with.
Oh no.
Philk, Chris Drury will be the GM July 1st, 2026.
So a year from this July.
Yes.
I hate to go against what Johnny was saying before, because he kind of has a pulse on things. I'm sorry. I had to comment. I had to highlight this. This is great. Anyone who remembers Marcel Hossa and the potential that was there, that was pretty funny. Nigel Dawes also should have been
saddest layup of all time.
I don't know.
Evan in the chat.
I'm gonna say beer, just because. What if things really go wrong this year? What if everything turns south, and it's? I don't know. I think he might be given a couple of years just because of the conversations with him and Dolan, especially if Dolan's involved in exit interviews. Dolan has to have some understanding of the radical changes that Drury wants to make to this roster. So he might be given multiple years to be able to do so. I mean, this is a good question from James. If he didn't get fired after this season, then when are they going to do that? If Dolan and Drury obviously are like this. He calls Dolan Mr. D.
When there's only one.
There's only one Mr. D.
Yeah, I agree with you. There was only one Mr. D, and he just left us a few minutes ago. But if he calls him that, the type of relationship that they have, that's speaking to something there. So I'm going to say beer, just because you never know what can happen or what will happen. But the way that I would look at it, like I said, would be that if he's involved in the exit interviews, he has to have some sort of understanding of what type of roster construction, deconstruction, I guess you could say, that has to be made in order for him to be able to move on. Wow. Wow. I can't believe I just saw that one. That's great. I'm not highlighting that, but that's great.
I got to give credit to G. That's a
wow.
Yeah. That's yeah. But yes, it's definitely a possibility that he will be the GM.
Matt?
Me personally, I fucking hope not that he's here next year on July 1st. But yeah, I gotta go with beer just because I don't trust James Dolan. I mean, we've seen it. And like what Phil said, it seems that Dolan and Drury are really tight. So, I mean, I think the only way that Drury does get fired is if next year's season goes worse than this year. And I mean, that's going to be pretty hard to top. Could I see it? Probably, just because I don't trust Drury and I don't like the construction of this roster. But like I said, I do not trust James Dolan. And it seems that with their close connection, I could really see Drury being here next year.
Evan?
beer layup because I don't know.
Beer layup.
I really don't know.
The first ever beer layup.
The one because I really don't know. Like the one thing I'll say is that when I was in Steven's Spaces yesterday, I forgot who it was, but someone brought it up and they know someone that works under Dolan, and apparently Dolan was at that game that we were at where they lost to the Flyers 8-5, and he left early because he was pissed off with the way that went. So, like you brought up, Phil, Dolan isn't happy with the way things are going, but it seems like Drury's the lapdog. But I'd have to imagine that next season, if it goes similar to how this one went, he's gone. But I don't know if it will, because if you told me going into the season that this much drama would happen and it would be this ugly, I wouldn't have believed you, even though I had lower expectations than most people did. So I really don't know what next season's going to be. I don't have high expectations, so it's only can be a beer here. Like I'm sorry, this is a beer layup though, and first of its kind, but I don't know how else to answer it.
I'll tell you, the only way I can think of is it should be a shot. I don't think he should be there July 1st, 2025.
That I agree.
But with the amount of stuff that's happened on this team, and then finding out about the other thing last week, how is he still employed? Because I'm pretty sure because he's not just the GM, he's the president. And I tried to be a Drury apologist. I tried to be like, it's Gorton's team. He was saddled with some contracts. I am at the point now, they need to clear house. They need to go pluck guys from winning organizations.
Yep. And
they need to start going that route. Whatever happened to that route of hey, why don't we that organization is winning. Why don't we get that guy that's underneath that guy?
Well, that's the point I made about Jeff Halpern. Like, I would like Halpern because Halpern has been in a winning organization that has developed players at a very, very high level. Like, if you get that guy and he comes in, let's just say for worst case example, he becomes Todd Reardon, like how Todd Reardon couldn't succeed Barry Trotz in Washington.
Or Lane Lambert.
Lane Lambert, something like that. Like, let's just say that happens. Then you could go to a more experienced coach and be like, hey, you know what? We tried it, didn't work. But how are you ever gonna know if you don't try?
Well, Phil, just to go further from that, remember when Scotty Bowman retired? Everybody was so focused. Dave Lewis was going to be the next big thing.
Yep.
He was gone real quick.
Nope, he didn't last at all.
And then I think it was Babcock took over for him after the lockout. But it's where go for the assistant, see if they can do the job. Who knows? You could end up with Bill Belichick, or you could end up with Todd Reardon. I mean, that's the other one. I mean, Colin Campbell, even he was somewhat of a serviceable NHL head coach. But it's something. Just going through the retread stuff. It's not going to work again. Don't go to Tortorella. Don't even go to Coach Q, which they're not going to. Thank goodness they're not going to.
Here's the problem with that, Mark, is that this organization, by extending Igor, and it's pretty much what Jason's saying, you can't fix stupid. Like, this organization basically admitted we haven't learned from our mistakes. We don't want to try something new. And that's the bigger issue here in all of this.
That was what I said yesterday in Steven's Space about the Igor truthers, quote unquote. Like, did we not learn from the last 20 years?
Even if the Igor contract is a good contract, let's go with this one first. Even if that's the right thing to do and he deserves the money, the timing of that was the absolute worst information, because it was, all right, we just got rid of $8.5 million off our cap, so we're giving it to someone else. And all the players are going, wait, the captain just got traded. I'm glad my buddy got money, but why is he getting paid? And then whose contract is going to be affected after that? That's all thoughts that are going through all these guys' heads. So, insane. Guys, thank you very much joining us on our version of Rangers Bar Talk, Big Apple Hockey's Bar Talk, where we gauge our confidence on NHL topics based on our choice of Drake. Evan, you have some blind rankings. I can't wait to see what some of these are.
Well, so here's the thing. I have either one that I could do it as just 10, top 10 for this, or we could do this one for, I could do 2 different ones for this of 5. So how do you want to do this?
Are they Mark's greatest gaffes?
That would have been a good one, honestly. Unfortunately, it's not, but that would have been a good one.
They're all number 1.
Some gaffes are greater than other ones, guys.
List blind ranking. That's what we should have done. But
that's what I thought you were gonna honestly come up with. I thought you were just gonna troll the shit out of him, and I was gonna laugh hysterically.
Well, now we're giving Anthony ideas.
This is a genuine idea here. So
we did just give Anthony a ton of ideas.
Do you want to do it that way, where we do 2 of them as top 5s, or do 1 overall as a top 10?
Do you have 2 different subjects, or do you have only one?
It's the same subject, but I have 10 of them. So that's what I'm saying. We could do it as 2 sets of 5, or we could do just 1 as 10.
Let's just do the 1 top 10 then.
1 top 10 then. If it's 1 subject, then you got to go 1 top 10.
All right. So the blind ranking is worst losses of the season.
Oh, right. God. Blue Shirt Manager, I think, just did an article on this one.
Make sure you have the date, because I think the Devils are going to come up twice.
I do have the date. So we have the home game versus Colorado, where they lost 5-4 on January 26th.
I'm going to go... I'm going to go 6.
That one was bad just because something personal bad happened to me that same day of that game and that loss. So 5.
I'm gonna have to agree with Phil on 6 because the effort was there. They took the lead in the 3rd period.
And they blew the lead. Yeah. I think it was only like a 1-goal lead though that they had.
Yeah, I think it was a 1-goal lead. They fought back. They were down 2 early, and you thought, oh, here it comes. They tied the game. There was fight in them, and then they just made the most horrendous mistake. That was one of the worst goals I've ever seen let up at the end of a game outside of Joel Ward, Game 1 in 2015.
So you're gonna go 6?
I'll go 6.
The next one is the Seattle game at home, December 8th, where they lost 7-5.
They had a lead in that game too, and they let up,
I believe they had a big lead.
Yeah, I think they let up like 5 unanswered goals in that game.
Yeah.
That's tough for me. I'm gonna say, ooh. I have like 4 in mind that I want to reserve for the top 4.
Okay.
And you know what? I'm gonna put this at 5.
Matt, I want to hear your thoughts on it first.
I'll go 4. The only reason why it probably doesn't go higher is because there's probably some other bad losses, and the fact that it softens the blow a little bit just because I met Filipino that same day. And Juan Soto signed with the Mets that same night. So at least my night got salvaged a little bit. So I'll go 4. I'll go 4.
I'll actually go 7 on this one. The reason why is because A, I went to the game with my wife. B, so I was at that game. That's one. Oh, hi, Apple, doing that. B, we had a good time, even though we were looking around for hoodies. A Ranger hoodie for her to get, and they just did not give us any good options because, oh my goodness, they were all so pricey. But we ended up going into one of the lobbies, talking to some fans, having a good time with that. The on-ice play, though, they had that game pretty well. I mean, the first period, they dominated that period. And then...
Oh, the Rangers took 40 minutes of a game off?
Yeah, well, even that, 30, folk. It was like they went 30 minutes of the game, and then suddenly, guys, one thing we never mentioned the entire show, 23 times this season, the Rangers gave up back-to-back goals in less than 2 minutes.
Oh, Matt has some stats to bring up
actually,
later.
Can I actually? Yeah, I have some.
Let's do it
stats
after
on
the blind ranking
Yeah,
because
we'll
I
do
know
that.
we'll
what
do
you're
the
gonna
blind
bring up.
rankings first. I'm sorry, I'm going off a tangent. So if not for my beautiful wife, I would have to say it would be maybe to 5. But here's the problem too with the Rangers. There's a lot worse efforts than that. They came back, and there was at one point where we all thought they were going to come back and salvage everything, but no, they didn't. So I'll go with 7.
5, 4. So Brian, yes, believe it or not, hockey games are longer than 20 minutes. The next one here, the loss at Tampa Bay where they lost 6-2 on December 28th.
I'll start this.
Wait, what was that one again? I'm sorry. It was
the loss in Tampa Bay where they lost 6-2 on December 28th.
I'll start this. This one I'll go to 5. This is where you really saw it, and this was right when.
5?
Yeah, I'll go to 5 on this one. I think this is where you really kind of saw they were trying to climb out of it and they couldn't. I think this is the game Kreider was healthy scratched.
Didn't you put the last game though that we just talked about at 5?
No, I put it at 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's
put it
what I
at
was
7.
confused. All right, 7.
Matt had it at 5. Or
Oh, that's all
4.
right.
I had mine at 4.
No, yeah, you had it.
Okay.
Okay, Phil had it at 5. Yeah.
So that's it for me. That's they're trying to climb out. They can't. Igor let in some bad goals. Ryan McDonough had a shorthanded goal in that game. And it was just like, hey, the Rangers versus the big boys. Look at them get smacked around.
I'm going to say 9. Tampa Bay was just a very good team, and I don't think anybody really knew it yet. I think the Gord trade really the Gord Bjorkstrand trade kind of really established them as a legitimate cup threat in the way they ended the season. But they always had a good team, and Gensel was playing well for them, and they were scoring. So definitely not a good loss, but I mean, to me, the ones that I can think of, they don't come anywhere close to that one. I mean, that one doesn't come anywhere close to the other ones I saw. Sorry about that.
You're making me reconsider my rank, but it's already in.
I'll go 7. I don't know. That one probably just blurs into a bunch of bad losses from that stretch. So
yeah,
7.
That's fair. The game versus Philly where they lost 8-5, April 9th.
The one that we went to.
Yeah, the one we went to.
Cool. I've used 5 and 4. I've used 9. I'm probably gonna have to go either 7 or 6. You know what? I'm gonna go 6. I could make an argument for it going higher because of the desperate need for points at that time, but I was so just kind of resigned to the fact that they weren't going to make the playoffs by that point, and because the efforts just were not there. The fact that they had gotten the lead a couple of times and then they just completely blew the lead and just lost faith in themselves and just lost the desire to battle back. I got to go 6 on that one.
Fair.
Making me regret some of my decisions. I'll go 8 because I can't put it above the Tampa one because we're going to have some really bad losses. For the game itself and the playoff implications, I believe that's what eliminated the Rangers, right?
It pretty much did.
Pretty much, yeah.
Did.
The game that eliminated them was the Carolina one.
Okay. So the Rangers were basically put on life support as soon as there was one more loss that had to go in there that was in there. But I think what people are neglecting, and you guys maybe forgetting because you were at the game, that was the TNT reunion of Sam Rosen and John Davidson. And they did a great job, but my goodness, just Jonathan Quick looked terrible. The Rangers just did not look good in any way. It wasn't good, but by this time the body was already decomposing.
So the next game that we had.
Hold on, I didn't do it.
Oh, you didn't do yours. Oh, sorry.
I'll go.
Just trying to go through it.
Yeah, I'll go 6. Yeah, just garbage all around. I had to watch Carson Soucy play live with my own eyes, so that automatically makes it a bad game to watch. And then, yeah, that was the game that they sat Gabe Perreault, and that was probably the only reason why I was excited to go to that game was to see Gabe live. So, yeah, bad loss. And then, like you mentioned, Mark, JD and Sam did a good job on TNT that night, and the team, of course, just doesn't show up.
That was also the first and only loss the Mets have at Citi Field thus far this year. So that also didn't help. But next game is the one. This one I think is going to be high for everyone here. The game at Buffalo where they lost 8-2 right out of the Four Nations break.
Oh dear God!
I think I know where that one's going for everyone. Like that one's definitely got to be up there.
I want Matt to go first.
Yeah, I didn't expect you to put this game in because I just wasn't thinking of it. So if I could adjust my rankings, I probably would. But because there's a couple other games too that are up there. I'll probably go because I have 1, 2, and 3 left. I'll probably go 2 with this one.
This comment.
Yeah, I'll probably
this one. Oh my God.
Yeah,
I missed the comments.
Yeah, this is number 2 for me. It was just terrible game all around. I mean, you played a terrible Buffalo team, and the fact that they looked like that, especially coming out of the break, where especially where people thought that maybe it could have been a mental reset for them, and they could have got back to playing a better sprint of hockey, and then you play that type of way. Yeah, that's 2 for me.
I
gotta go 2 too.
I can't decide if this is 1 or 2. Because
there's one
there's another Buffalo one where they got shut out. I think 6-0. I think it was
6-1 that loss.
Yeah, that one, and that was a little earlier on in the year, and that's when we were just like, can they
all be one?
Can they all be one? Yeah. I'm gonna put this at 1.
Okay. And Mark, you said 2.
I'm gonna put it at 2. I'm gonna let Phil finish that thought, and then I have a quick anecdote about this.
Yeah, I gotta put this at 1. It just for them to come back after the Four Nations break and have JT Miller already, and to have everybody there and to have a clear-cut understanding of what needs to be done and things that need to change, and then for them to show up like that, and I think Buffalo was still last place in the NHL at the time. Yeah, they were like second last or something like that. When you come up with an effort like that's just absolutely terrible against that type of team. I know that the Devils loss is going to be up there. There's a couple of Devils losses that are up there for me.
Oh yeah,
but it's just God, there he is.
It's going.
Yeah, we're doing blind ranking of 1 to 10 through Rangers losses this year. Good that you can come on because I'm going to have to leave soon.
Did anybody troll Mark with ridiculous options for that list that he doesn't catch on to? Like
we thought Evan, I thought Evan was going to come up with a blind ranking of Mark's greatest gaffes.
Yeah.
And we all joked that we just gave Anthony a ton of ammunition.
Yeah.
And Matt actually paid some tribute to you, Mr. LaRocco, earlier.
He used your "who's the hack that came up with this question" line.
There you go.
Although Phil, when
you missed a pretty brutal Mark moment earlier too with Chris Drury, which I won't repeat what he said, but
yeah, that one.
Yeah, we're let's just say Mark wanted to reenact that with Chris Drury.
Let me just tell you this. That loss was terrible. That 8-2-1, it was 5-0 at the end of the first against a goalie that was well rested. It wasn't like Connor Hellebuck coming off the championship game. Igor Shesterkin, granted, I know he hasn't seen a puck in a while. Oh no, we're gonna get Anthony's thoughts about Lou as soon as this is all done, because this is big news, and we're gonna talk more about it tomorrow because we're gonna have to. But this to put this in perspective. The first time around when they played Buffalo and they lost big, it was my wedding rehearsal dinner. And me and Maria, we were just welcoming guests in, and it was just like this. Everybody, thanks for coming. What the? Just they were down 3-0 before I could even welcome in my family. So this loss is somehow worse. How you lose the Buffalo Sabres in such a humiliating manner twice. This particular loss, this was the one that said sell. And then they had the comeback win against the Penguins, I think, right after that, which made people think that they believed again.
We're going to speed run the last few just because Matt and I got to get going for the Met game after this. But
absolutely.
The game against Washington on January 4th where they lost 7-4.
9.
Yeah, I'm going to go 9.
Since Phil isn't here, I'll keep going through it. The game at home versus Columbus where they lost 7-3 on March 9th.
4.
10.
The game against New Jersey where they lost 5-0 on December 23rd.
1.
Matt, you first.
1.
That's where you knew that they were screwed or effed.
The game at Anaheim where they lost 5-4 on March 28th.
8.
3.
The game against Ottawa where they lost 4-3 on March 8th where Brady Tkachuk got that OT winner.
Yeah, my last one's 3, so that's where it's got to go.
I don't think I said 2 yet, so I think that's 2.
Yeah, I knew that I could fool you by thinking I'd put the other New Jersey one on there. So
no, I thought
I left that for last.
I thought the other game that you were going to put on there was the home game against the Kings.
Yeah, that I thought about putting on there.
Garbage too.
A couple of the Devils' losses. Honestly, the sad part is
I'm surprised the Blackhawks loss wasn't here either.
That's another one I thought about. It's sad that there's 10 bad losses that I just named, and we could still name more. That's the sad part about this.
I mean, this pretty much goes in line because, like I mentioned before, I have some really terrible stats of just to show you how bad the Rangers were defensively this year. Because me, Carson, and Evan were bored one night, and we decided to, torture ourselves by going through these games. So we looked at all the games this year, all 82 games, and there was 23 games, 28% of the schedule where the Rangers allowed 5 goals or more. Their record in those games is 19-4 for a total of 4 points. There was 28 games, 34% of the games where the Rangers allowed 4 goals or more. Their record in those games were 22-5 for a total of 7 points. And then in 41 of those 82 games, they allowed more than 30 plus shots on goal. That's how fucking bad this team was defensively and all around.
Oh my God. They got a lot of cleanup that they have to do. And speaking about which, you guys have a game to go to. Go enjoy the Met game. This was just
comment.
Yeah. Oh, I missed any other comments in there.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah. Please make it stop.
I'm gonna bounce out because I'm actually. You guys are going to the Met game too, or no?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
All right. So then you know what? I'll text you guys because I'm going in with my buddy Mike. So I'll text you guys and maybe we can meet up. I'll probably maybe we could crush a couple beers in the parking lot or something like that.
Yeah, we'll text you.
All right.
All right.
Good.
Have fun, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us on.
That sounds good.
Yeah, thanks, boys. Love doing this. I don't know if you guys want to get together for pre-draft stream as well. I know Steven wants to do that.
You can do that.
So we'll get something going on that. But definitely look out, like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already, and be on the lookout for more from us and from just for me. Mark, you and Anthony staying on for a bit.
Well, actually, here's what we're gonna have to do, guys. We're gonna have to cut it off right here because we have to cover this news that's down here in the bottom, and maybe have a little bit of fun with it, but also maybe not because look, Anthony brought up a lot of positives that Lou Lamoriello has done. We're gonna have to start a whole new stream, get the All Things Islanders crowd on here. So, guys, we're gonna say thank you very much for everybody that was here for the Rangers wrap up, but the big breaking news of the day is Lou Lamoriello departing from the New York Islanders. So Anthony and I are going to go craft a new stream and get this all ready. and get right back on.
Do you even need to do? Do you even need to do a new stream for that? I mean, you have
You know what,
508 people in there. I mean,
all right. You know what, Anthony? We're gonna actually. Here's what we'll do. We'll keep everybody on. I'll make this a clip later on for us.
Yeah, and then clip the other part of it later.
Yeah, clip the other part of it. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Guys, thank you all very much. So
Thank you.
All right, I'll call you guys in a little bit.
See you guys.
See you.
All right.
See you later, guys.
So, Anthony, I do have to appreciate once again the timing of the NHL season. Guys, thanks for staying with us. For anybody that is, because we got to talk about the big. This is the biggest news of the day, because you thought this guy was bulletproof. This guy was Thanos compared to him. He was the ultimate Titan, the Kraken. It's just to say it like that. So, Anthony, the Islanders announced Lou Lamoriello will not be coming back. Let me get your initial thoughts on this.
Mixed feelings on it, honestly. I first off, I'm shocked. I didn't think Big Lou was gonna be let go. Just the owners have given him so much control and so much power over the years, and trust him so much. I just didn't think it was going to occur. It was one of those things like, you believe it when you see it, and now it happened. So, with that said, like I just said, mixed feelings on it. I personally love Big Lou. I'm not gonna lie. I like Big Lou. I think I like how he operates. He demands respect. People don't screw around with him. I think he's kind of hilarious with how petty he is sometimes and some of the things he does.
Yes.
But I get why there are a lot of fans are happy about it. I mean, since their second conference final run, they missed the playoffs. Then, they got in twice at the very end of the season, and, they lost both times to Carolina in some uneventful series. And then this year they missed the playoffs, and common denominator through all that is they haven't really made many big changes to the team since that conference final loss. They kind of, the Bo Horvat trade was huge. That was a big trade, but some say it came a year too late. He should have done that a year earlier, which is fair. But it also takes two sides to dance, if you know what I mean. So there's no doubt that he was hesitant to really break up this core. A lot of fans have been calling for it, and he hasn't done it. He stayed steadfast in it. He's doubled down, and I think eventually that's what cost him his job. But he's a guy, let's face it, no matter how this tenure ended with the Islanders, he's going down as one of the best executives of all time. And when you look back at his tenure with the Islanders, aside from Bill Torrey, Mark, this Lou era is the best era the Islanders have had. The most success they've had since the glory days. And the most important thing about it is he brought this franchise back to respectability and run like a true professional organization. Garth Snow ran the team like a Mickey Mouse organization with, him and Charles Wang, may he rest in peace. Wang saved the Islanders. Without him, they're probably not here. But at the end of the day, they did wacky things. They made very questionable decisions. And, a lot of times they were laughing stock. Lou came in and changed all of that. He changed to where players get here and they want to stay. And he was set in his ways with the no facial hair and, no high jersey numbers and, all these ridiculous rules that a lot of people say are silly, but he has a purpose for everything that he does. Zach Parise last week was on an Islanders podcast that the organization runs, where they have former players on. They talk about stories, and he talked about those rules exactly. He's like, you don't understand why he does it until you go somewhere else. And Parise was saying, he found that out when he left New Jersey, went to Minnesota. It's like you go somewhere else, and then it really hits you, and you're like, wow, I now know why he does these things. I know he referenced no tape on one of the stripes on the socks. And, Parise referenced it. It's all part of a bigger plan that no one is above the team. No one is better than the greater cause of the team. Everyone's pulling on the same rope. which is why, again, you can't have one player can't have his jersey tucked in and have a high flashy number and a tinted visor, because that's individuality. It stands out, and he preached to win. You win as a team, you lose as a team. So I can respect all that about Lou Lamoriello. With that said, I could also agree it's time for a change. He's 82 years old, Mark, roughly around there.
Around there, yeah.
So, while there's no doubt that he's still mentally sharp and capable of it, the fact is, it's tough to be a general manager in the NHL. It's high demand, and when you get as old as he is, I'm sure it doesn't get any easier. So I get that they made a decision to get younger and move on, and that's fine. But I think fans who are celebrating and extremely happy about Lou being gone, that's okay. But just try to be partial about what he did for this franchise. So now the search the page turns, and you move forward, and they need to find the next guy who's going to lead this Islanders team to the next chapter. It's still so early, Mark. No one's really throwing out names except one of Darren Dreger's tweets. He mentioned Ken Holland and that he wants to get back into it. That would be a terrible move. You just got rid of an older guy in Lou Lamoriello, and then you're gonna for Ken Holland to be a candidate would be just awful. So I hope that doesn't come to fruition. But it seems like they're gonna cast a huge net. They're gonna interview a lot of people, and I'm curious: do they go with a guy with veteran experience, or do they go with a younger guy? I know Kevin Wheat. I don't remember the team, Mark, but maybe it was a year ago or so. He was in contention for a general manager's position with the club. I want to say it was San Jose before Greer got it, but I'm not positive. But nonetheless, I wonder if a new fresh face like him will be in the mix, or maybe they want to go with a more experienced guy. But the one thing I think this does change, Mark, is I knew Lou already said there was going to be big change this offseason, and people skeptical about it, even though his word said it was because of his action in the past. Now that there's a new general manager coming in, Islander fans, buckle your seatbelts, because this is going to be a busy offseason. This new general manager is going to put his stamp on this team. And I don't know who's really safe. I think I could say with conviction, now with a new general manager, I would say Bo Horvat, Ilya Sorokin, and I guess Matt Barzal are probably, I would say, the three players who are probably safe to go nowhere. I was bullish with Lee going because, Mark, he's the captain. You know how Lou is with loyalty. He's very loyal, especially to a guy like Anders Lee. With a new general manager in tow, I think Lee's is a candidate to possibly move now. You name it. Lee, Pelech, Polak, anybody really, except for the three guys I mentioned. Elliot Friedman, Mark, mentioned just a couple days ago, and I referenced it in my tweet. And I'll admit it, I was wrong. But I had said with Boquist and Palmieri extensions getting close, I said to myself, well, that likely means Lou's staying, because if he was going, why would you allow him to negotiate those contracts? Do those contracts still go through? How close are they? Does Palmieri return now? So a lot of question marks. The only thing I'll say is I do think it's going to be really a very, very active offseason now for the Islanders. I think the demand from ownership is that, this is still a relatively new building. I don't think that they liked that the building was empty during the latter half of the season when it was evident they're going to miss the playoffs. They don't want that. And listen, I could be wrong. Obviously, I'm not there in the conversations, but I don't think this is a signal that the new general manager is going to tear it down. I think ownership wants to make sure that they're icing a very competitive team next season and going forward. So I don't think you're going to see a strip down. I just think you're going to see a lot of guys go from this core that didn't get the job done, and they try to bring in younger, better players who can help them reach the Stanley Cup playoffs and beyond next season. So I'll let you get your thoughts, but I'll just wrap it up with one. I'm shocked again. I didn't see it coming. And secondly, truly thank you to Lou Lamoriello for making this team a team to be proud of again. And I hope if you do choose to ride off into the sunset now, that you enjoy your retirement, and that your efforts on Long Island were certainly greatly appreciated.
Well, I'm going to get into the second part of what you're talking about, his legacy that he's now left on the New York Islanders, the indelible footprint that he's left. And hopefully the footprint that he's left is the one that the new general manager could walk in, even if they got a different philosophy. Let me first start by saying Lou brought this team back to relevance when it was in the darkest time in its franchise history. And I'm including John Spano in there and Milstein and Gluckskern era and all the bad times. They were absolute. To quote Mort Goodman from Family Guy, those were really awful times. Yeah, because they were. John Tavares left. Everybody looked over and went, "Are you kidding? This team going to be competitive? They're gonna be up for the number 1 draft pick for years." Instead, they not only won playoff series, which they didn't for 30 years, but they were a team to be reckoned with. And musical chairs helped with Barry Trotz getting here, Anthony. But Barry Trotz and Lou were on the same page. And Lou brought respectability back to this New York Islander franchise, which I think has been vastly missing for a long, long, long time. Now, that's for starters with him. Did he try to hold on to this team? Well, yeah, because imagine if this team had Ilya Sorokin 2 years earlier. I mean, timing on it. Sometimes you get a player that comes along, you think, all right, well, we can still do this. And Sorokin still is a more than capable goaltender doing that because, after all, his numbers rebounded from a bad year. But let's go back to this with Lou. And it shocks me and it shocked you. And I agreed with you on what you said, where the extensions, he basically got it to happen. You're like, he's going to be the GM again. And then he's not coming back. First, Ledecky sounded like if he had an option, Lou had a lifetime contract. I think this is Lou basically saying he's just going to retire, or maybe he's got a new project he's looking at. Who knows? But and it's no surprise that the guys that bring Lou around, Anthony, Brendan Shanahan bringing Lou to Toronto. I mean, you can hear the admiration when Bill Guerin talks about him, or we had Jim Dowd on. But this guy is the greatest American hockey mind ever, and he's worked with great hockey minds, and probably the second best one in Herb Brooks. But this is Lou being Lou. He's the closest thing to George Steinbrenner that I could think of in the NHL. So let me again praise him with that one. And typical Lou fashion, Anthony, we had no idea. We had no idea this was going to happen. And of course, it has to happen in the middle of a Rangers season wrap-up show. So as our audience is growing right now, we got 615 people that are watching at the moment. So let's start with that. To further his legacy is going to grow, Anthony. You started saying it yourself last week, and even 2 weeks ago. You got Danny Nelson, who's in the pipeline. You have Callum Ritchie, who he got in the Brock Nelson deal, plus a first-round draft pick. So go Colorado, go win the Stanley Cup and give Brock Nelson one. And there's a chance that, and he's already got Cole Yzerman, there's a chance they might get James Higgins. And then we might really think about Lou in a different light. And I think this does have the youth movement. I'm going to tee you up to get further into that, Anthony. If that's the case, go with the younger GM, go with the younger perspective, go with a guy that's going to have a plan slightly different from what they got right now, and maybe one that translates into the new NHL. And I think also it's not going to involve Patrick Waugh either. We'll get into that in a moment. But Anthony, that's. Oh, sorry. The last thing.
I was going to say that.
Wait. The Brock Nelson trade. That's his last gift to Islander fans.
Yes.
Go ahead. Yeah. I wanted to tee you up.
I was starting. You mentioned Patrick. You mentioned Patrick Waugh, so I was going to say, yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know what his fate's going to be now, too. As you saw with Chris Drury, he let Quinn go, right? Quinn wasn't his guy. So there's a chance that there's a guarantee that Waugh's not back either, depending on who this general manager is. He may have a guy in mind that he likes. Who knows? Could this, whoever they hire for this new general manager position, could he look at and see Joe Quenneville out there, John Tortorella out there, Laviolette out there, and think that maybe one of those guys are a better fit to lead his hockey club? It's certainly possible. So it's really going to depend on who that general manager is. So yeah, Patrick Waugh is certainly not safe. And what you just touched on, Mark, Lou's parting gift to the franchise was adding a top 20 prospect in Callum Ritchie. I mean, that's fantastic for the Islanders. Ritchie's going to be on the team next season. He's got nothing left to prove in junior. So I'm excited to see what he has next season. But yeah, you know what? Lou's leaving the team in a much better spot than what he found it in, which, you know, some fans, talking to some other fans, you would think that's not the case, but it's true. Lou came into a team where they just, on their darkest day, where John Tavares left, and, you know, he put together a team that was a playoff team. No one thought that. They were going to be dead last in the league that you had mentioned at the top, Mark. But instead, they make the playoffs and they sweep the Penguins in the first round. So, you know, the new general manager is taking over a team, as you mentioned, has Danny Nelson, Cole Eiserman, Callum Ritchie in the pipeline with right now, I think they ended the season, they would hold the 10th pick in the draft. If they move up in the lottery, that would be gravy. But at the very least, they're going to add another top 10 pick. And then on top of that, you have guys like Bo Horvat, Matt Barzal, Ilya Sorokin, Noah Dobson, who are you know, very good players at their position. So I think they're going to be an attractive team to take over with those core pieces in place. I think what's the new guy's biggest task is going to be is complementing those core players and adding more youth and speed to the lineup. Because, Mark, as much as we could appreciate the work ethic and the motors of a guy like Casey Zizekas and Kyle McLean and you know, Hudson Fasching and, you know, those guys of the world, the Islanders have too many of those kind of bottom six, you know, work dogs in the lineup. They need more speed and they need more skill. And, you know, you see what happens when sometimes we have too much skill, but you have guys that don't want to work hard, like guys like, you know, Artemi Panarin and Lafreniere. It doesn't mean you're going to win. So you do need those lunch pail pieces in place. They're going to bring their lunchbox with them to work every day and work hard, but you need more skill. So the new general manager, I think that's going to be his top task. You know, you got Simon Holmstrom, who had a near 50-point season, Mark. You talk about a breakout year, 23 years old. You know, I think he's still going to get even better. So, like, he's a good piece, too, that they have there. So I think that the core is in place. It's just a matter of subtracting the Pageaus, the Cizikases of the world, and adding better, younger, skilled players into the mix is what's going to elevate the Islanders back into, you know, hopefully a contender status. So, you know, again, we'll see which direction they go, but I think this new general manager is going to be very active in the offseason, and it's too early to say what kind of impact it's going to have on free agency because, you know, as much as Lamoriello is respected, Mark, he still failed to land a big fish in his tenure. So,
well, I'll get into that in a second.
So could whoever they hire as a general manager, could that person be more successful at it? I mean, it's speculation. It's hard to say, but I think that new general manager is going to have a kind of a sales pitch in mind heading into the free agency period that maybe Lamoriello didn't have, or he'll do differently to try. But I don't think it's going to change the teams. Like, for instance, I'm of a belief that I think the Islanders are going to go after Mitch Marner. Not saying he's going to choose them. I'm saying they're going to go after him. Does this new general manager have more of a chance to land him than Lou? I don't know, but I do think that's going to be one of the avenues that they go to this offseason.
You're definitely right about that. And let's start with what I've always said about Lou's philosophy on free agents. And again, I don't have this from him. I'm just reading the tea leaves. Lou's not a big free agent guy. Lou likes to sign a guy, get him here, and then sign him knowing he's got leverage and the long term. He did it with Perreault. He did it with Ilya Kovalchuk back on the Devils days. I can't really recall the big free agent that he landed back with his Devils days. He's very much a team first guy. And sometimes I think he might think the free agents might create a sort of individualized mystique with a team. But like I was thinking about Steve Phillips referring to A-Rod as a 24-1 situation. But that being said with Lou, so I think first, I think the general manager that comes in, and Ledecky and Malkin, they're going to be like, go get us a big fish. So yes, they're going to be in on Malkin. They're going to be in on Mitch Marner. Now, there's a lot of things that the Islanders are not shackled to. And they're not shackled to their past in this case. Because Lou's kind of wiped that slate clean. First off, we said before about the high numbers. Lou's smacking that down, and Josh Hosang would never have been wearing 66. You learn about you learn about being a team member and being a team player. And all those headlines that I said that the Rangers have that the Islanders don't, you might see some of them creep back in because that's what Lou is able to do. It would be like, oh, we got a headline that goes with the Islanders. Let me just check something. Uh-oh. He's over here. No. He stops all that. So basically, if you're a player, if you do anything embarrassing, he's got your back. And you're not going to do anything embarrassing because he will kill you. So, metaphorically speaking, people, sorry, or unaliving, whichever one you want to say.
Yeah.
But this is one of those things. He immediately commanded respect, and he also knew what he was doing. He knew how to add the right pieces on the way to the cup. The problem is when they're falling back down, that's when he has his trouble. And the Islanders are definitely left a better organization today than they were the day he took over. They were a nomad organization going through two different buildings that you didn't know what was going on with UBS. Anthony, I'll just see it to you and let you say a little bit more.
Yeah, listen, when John Tavares left on July 1st, 2018, like I said, it was a dark day. Like one of the Islander message boards, like Islander Mania, just went dark for the rest of the day because it just was so it was just everyone, it was gut wrenching. And Lou Lamoriello, you can make jokes about Leo Komarov, but what is the first thing he do? He brings in a high character guy that he knows in Leo Komarov to come into that locker room. He reacquires Matt Martin, again, a huge veteran presence, a leader. He pushed the right buttons in a bad time, and it wasn't the most skilled group, but it was the team with the right players in the right place, in the right leadership, and they rallied around everyone's doubting us, and with Trotz in tow, they surprised everybody. And without Lou Lamoriello at the helm there, if Garceau was still a general manager and Tavares left, I think the team would have plummeted in the standings for the next 5 years. Lou didn't let that happen. He's a veteran. He knows how to work things, and he worked his magic there. I'm just getting a phone call I got to take here, Mark. So you're going to have to run the show there for a minute.
No problem. I'll hold on to you for a minute. So, but also going, guys, further into this, we'll get to some of your comments that are in there in a second. But I mean, if John Tavares had to make his decision a year later, there's no question he would have stayed with the New York Islanders. No question. And would they have been able to afford Perreault? Who knows? But this was definitely something that helped them. The dog agrees with Anthony. I love that one. Depends on which direction. All right, but this is the thing. Now you can get an actual like GM with a vision who could look at this roster and go in and go do it and get it done. It's not somebody that is like Lou's assisted that's just going to be Lou 2.0. Go and find the right guy and go from a winning organization. What I say the Rangers should be doing. Go pluck a guy from Tampa Bay or Dallas and get a guy that could come in and reshape the culture of this team. Because that's one thing about the New York Rangers, guys. The culture is very much sour with the New York Rangers. Going back to the New York Islanders on this one. Frank is saying right here, don't we want the Rangers to go after Mitch Marner? Rangers love old free agents. Yeah, well, you know what? But Mitch Marner would be better for the Islanders. You get that big name that goes over there. And that's one thing about the Bo Horvat move. It wasn't just a trade. It was Bo Horvat that was there to they got him and he immediately signed a big money deal. Sight unseen. He could have just played it out, left at the end. Nope. Bo Horvat wanted to be a New York Islander. And that's what Lou got, because when's the last time you got an Islander that ever just looked at the team and went, I'll sign there? It was basically a free agent signing in the middle of the season that year. So that would happen with the New York Rangers. It wouldn't happen with the Islanders. Thomas Vanek couldn't wait to leave, especially after John Tavares got injured. But yeah, a lot of these, free up Chris Kreider. Well, Frank, what they might need to do is they might need to move on from him, trade him for that one. Patrick Waugh. Yeah, Patrick Waugh. First off, if the Islanders are going younger, the last person they need to coach of this team is Patrick Waugh. Patrick Waugh is just, again, can we get a stamp on what he does? I mean, he's way too indecisive. I don't know who Patrick Waugh is as a coach. And you shouldn't be saying that for a guy who's coached over 400 NHL games. Oh, yeah. Oh, Mike said he should be the GM. No, technically speaking, if he's going to be the GM, it needs to be, hold on. I'm trying to think of who the Islanders is. Semyon Varlamov. There should go that method. MJ added to saying, is Patrick Waugh NHL level head coach? I don't think he is. We'll have a more thorough discussion about that tomorrow on that show. But I mean, I don't think Patrick has what it takes to coach at the NHL level, and it's not his own pedigree. It's that I don't think that he's a guy that could coach professionals. And that's what I think. And some guys can recognize that. Dale Hunter coached the Capitals for 1 year, and then he was gone. And I have a fly. I have to kill that thing. MJ had to say it. I saw someone on the Ranger Central stream said, Waugh could be the next Rangers coach. Oh, dear God, no. Oh, dear God, no. It was a shock when Patrick Waugh was the coach of the New York Islanders. And I think what guys like Waugh is a shot of adrenaline. I'm tired of the guys that are the shots of adrenaline that give you that short-term high. They need to find a guy. They need to find somebody completely off the grid. Both the Islanders and the Rangers. See, I'm afraid the Islanders are going to be the guy to go get Jeff Halpern and have him try to coach this team without any restrictions. I mean, that would be a plus. But this is a team that desperately needs. Well, it's got to be the right college coach. Ray, you're right about this one, because now the Islanders can actually take a bigger chance, but the Rangers, you need the right college coach. You need to have one that's a little bit more media savvy and one that can say some things to kind of keep the media off his back, but also be able to coach the players in a high pressure situation. The Islanders have a lot of the Rangers' advantages without the Rangers' disadvantages, because so little attention is paid to them compared to the Rangers that the Islanders are able to fly in under the radar and do some things. Now, David Quinn was not the right head coach. And I bought into Quinn year 2. I was like, wow. The problem I have was, and what I'll bring up is, if it was Jim Montgomery that was the coach, what would have been different? Because they were going after Jim Montgomery at the time. Maybe Messier can coach the Islanders. You know what? That would be a great payback to Brian Trottier coaching the New York Rangers and how lost that man was. But I think I think the Islanders are going to be smart about this. I think they're going to land a smart GM. It's not going to be like Peter Chiarelli or a retread like some of these other guys, but it's definitely, I think they definitely have a shot at wiping the slate clean. If only another New York team did the same thing. And yeah, MJ Edit's right about this. They're going to retool. Nick, I need to learn more about Jay Leach, but I'll let you know on that one. I'll circle back eventually on that one. But Frank, this is one. I think this situation, again, when I talked about just now, the Islanders have some of the Rangers' advantages and none of the Rangers' disadvantages. This would be a place where you can actually land Quenneville. Now, I'm not saying they should or even go talk to them. Just saying they could, and it wouldn't be as much of a problem. Because Quenneville might have a blowback from the fan base, even in the hockey markets. But because it's sort of quiet out here, and if you do it in the middle of the summer, everybody's going to be focused on the New York Mets and football training camp starting. And if they did it, if they did it Thursday night, let's say, for instance, they hired Quenneville Thursday night during the NFL draft, they then have 4 months to let this all go. My problem with Quenneville, and I say no to him for the New York Rangers, but I say yes for the New York Islanders if they wanted to. I don't think that they might not want to. So let's just understand that one. I think Quenneville could still coach. I just don't know when it's time for his penance to be paid and when it's enough, because there's there's multiple people's lives who were destroyed by them just simply not saying this is above my pay grade. They thought they knew what was best. They could sweep it under the rug. They couldn't do that. So I'm not up for that. Quenneville's coaching style may be outdated. He's not coached in a long time. Nick, that's a good point. But then again, he had Florida starting to fire on all cylinders. And then, but this is what I'm saying. The drama, the Islanders, I think, could absorb it a little bit easier than the Rangers. And especially if Lou has some kind of connection to that franchise, Lou would know how to do it. But still, nobody ever went for Quenneville. Quenneville was part of the Blackhawks cover-up, the abuse scandal. And if you need to know whether or not Joel Quenneville should coach again or if Stan Bowman should be a GM again, I got to remember his name again. Just see the kid's interview. It's heartbreaking what he went through. But this was, and actually, by the way, guys, technically speaking, it's Quenneville. But, and yeah. And that's what's hard about trying to say this right now. Because I can still respect Quenneville and his coaching style, but also he had his interview with ESPN. You'd have to look up. I'm going to look up his name. And when he came forward, Brad Aldridge was the name of the coach. Kyle Beach was the interview. If you could see his ESPN Sports Center interview, probably the last time I ever watched Sports Center. It's something. It's gut wrenching. Frank's saying right here, what comes to mind when you think of a defensive-minded coach and his physicality as a coach? Asking because that's what we need to improve on the most. When I think of defense, I think of discipline and structure. That's what I think about. And I think that would be something that you would want in your coach, because you want that steady hand. Look at Barry Trotz. That's just it on that one. Guys, I'm just going to answer one more question, and then I'm going to sign off for the day. We're going to post the second half of this video up to talk about Lou, but this was a great time today, everybody, on everything we've gone through. There is so much that we're going to have to be covering. But Iceman right here, this is the question I wanted to answer. Brock Besser refusing to sign with the Canucks to use JT's buddy. What do you think? I think the Rangers should go after Brock Besser, and that's why they should move on from Artemi Panarin and Mika Zibanejad, both of them. It was just a lot, and a lot that we had to process. I think you can replace Panarin. Would it just be Besser? No. But here's the thing. You need to move on. His core isn't winning. You need to make sure you move on from this. And for anybody that came on thinking this was the Rangers show, and it was the dedicated Rangers show, but then, of course, the Lou information and news breaking really had to change up things. So I have some work ahead of me because I got to edit this and get it on for and Iceman, that's what the thinking is. Panarin's assets. We trade Panarin. Sure, everybody's got their bread costumes. You know what? Wear them when he comes back. It's just that. Well, Mike, you're right. Lou had to mess it up one more time for me. But look, you can still say thank you for your time. Panarin's probably the greatest free agent signing in New York Rangers history. The greatest trade was Mark Messier. Their greatest draft pick, that's debatable between Brian Leetch and Henrik Lundqvist, in my opinion. But this was an amazing show today. Thank you very much, Jonny Lazarus. Thank you to Evan and Matt and Joe from Ranger Central and Ice Cold Takes podcast, and also, of course, to John Falkowski and Anthony LaRocco for being with us. It would be great if they could somehow move Mika. Yeah. Look, I keep saying this for both organizations. If they're going to make changes, make radical ones. Do not make little bitty itty ones. No. The Rangers aren't a fine tune. They're not a guitar that's out of tune. You just kind of, no, those strings need to be plucked, replaced, and then you have to tune the guitar all over again. So I only had one guitar, guys, and I have to get back to playing it. So there's a lot that the Rangers need to do, and the Islanders now. But the Islanders can actually see a bit of a brighter future. Don't you want the Rangers to be like that too? We are Big Apple Hockey. We do want both of these teams to succeed and move on from there. Guys, thank you all very much. We have tomorrow's show, which will be doing a lot of playoff coverage and also a lot more coverage about Lou Lamoriello's legacy in the NHL and what he has meant to everything. So, because I think he's the greatest American hockey mind ever, as I said before. Guys, thank you very much. Can't thank everybody that is joined or even still joined. We got 643 of you. Everybody, thank you very much, and we will see you soon. See you tomorrow at 1 o'clock.